Pump the brakes, everybody. Not quite Isaac and Suk. It is still prime time here with you all afternoon and evening. An SOB edition. Schulte, Ortner, and Buck are bringing you prime time today. Fellas, how are we doing?
That's right. I forgot about the old SOB edition.
That's right.
I love the callback.
Yeah, so Isaac still in the great American city of Salina, Kansas, helping out his parents get moved. Suk still gallivanting. I believe he's playing golf today in the Lake Tahoe area. And so joke's on us here manning the studio, but we're going to have a good time.
Yeah, they managed to leave right when it started to rain again. Weather started to get crappy, and then they'll be back right when the weather gets nice. Now, that being said, there is a point of contention about the great American city of Salina.
Oh, and what is that now?
I have ran into random bar patron from the great American city of Salina, and he did not find it funny when I asked him what a booming metropolis that town was. He was like, have you been to Salina, Kansas?
So he took offense to the fact that you thought it was, in fact, a booming metropolis when it may be an all-American city but is not booming.
Well, look, I've just been hearing for years the propaganda machine that is Everett Ropp, just out here saying, hey, it's a great town, it's a great city, there's all kinds of things to do. I think they have a Chili's. Like, it doesn't get fancier than that. So I'm over here at a bar, and I run into local bar dude, and, we're chatting it up, and he's got a KU sweatshirt on. So I'm like, hey,
You're
man.
like, hey, do you know Ropp?
I'm like, you're a Jayhawk? What are you doing all the way out here? And he's like, oh, I got my internship out here doing this stuff. And it's like, hey, man, that's awesome. You ever heard of Salina? Yeah, I'm from Salina. Like, oh, dude, I hear that town is great. It's like bigger than Lawrence. He's like, no, you heard wrong. You're an idiot. Like, I think you're an idiot. You haven't heard Ropp's take.
It's like a tall 3-story building in Salina. Is that like the downtown center?
It touches
How
the
far
sky.
Up your ass is your head? God.
So Salina maybe not booming is what we're learning, is what I'm supposed to learn from this?
Maybe it was booming and now it's busting. It's like San Francisco in the gold rush. It was booming and now it's... Although I guess San Francisco's wrong because it's always booming. What's a good town that's in that same area? Like maybe the Yukon when the Alaskan gold rush came in.
Sure.
It was booming and now it's not so much.
Yeah, I feel like there's actually probably quite a bit of the Midwest that was once booming and everyone made their way from east to west, and then it kind of started to settle down a little bit there.
You mean everybody figured out here was nicer than out there?
I was gonna say it's like
I'm not gonna knock anybody for choosing to live in the Midwest, but I might agree with you there.
When was the Midwest's peak? Are we saying like Thomas Jefferson era?
No, like the start of the Oregon Trail, like the 1800s.
Yeah, that's Thomas Jefferson era, kinda, right? Louisiana Purchase.
Boy,
We'll laugh
you're
for him, I
you're
think
the
there,
teacher,
Will.
man. So
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
gonna
Mr.
I have to.
Substitute.
I taught weight room yesterday, and I'm teaching kindergarten tomorrow. It ain't that bright over
Okay,
here.
let's get into that. What is that like? Will
What do you
Ortner
mean?
teaching kindergarten? Like
Teaching
Is
kindergarten?
it basic? I mean, listen, I have a 3-year-old. He's not that far away from kindergarten. I
Yeah.
have to imagine it's essentially just babysitting. But then again,
Yeah.
what are your official duties as kindergarten teacher?
Look, as long as we're not eating Legos, it's kind of a victory when I'm teaching kindergarten.
Do you have like a little syllabus or a thing that you follow?
Yeah. No, I mean, like, there's sub-plans that are laid out that, like, hey, I need to go out and I need to do these things.
What's the most advanced thing you're doing with these little tykes?
Right now, we're doing syllables.
Okay, that's good.
So I think
Pretty advanced.
I was gonna say so first you start off where you break up the word and then they repeat the word back to you, and then you are the one who says the word and they break the word apart, and you got to do little chops with your hands. There's hand motions.
Okay.
And then at some point, like, I'll read a book. I'll make sure that I usually have 2 or 3 books in my repertoire. So, like, if, hey, it's all starting to hit the fan, I got to find a way to calm everyone back down. And then I'll be honest, they have specialists kind of at the end of the day. When we come back, it's free choice time.
Okay.
You're allowed to do what you need to do. It's a lot of herding squirrels and then looking at the clock like, all right, 10 more minutes until they go to recess.
You're just trying to make sure that like all hell doesn't break loose while the clock ticks down.
Yeah, pretty much. They'll be excited. I got in a dunk tank on Saturday. A couple of the kids put me in the water, so they'll want to talk about that. And I'm sure someone will have sharing time. It'll be a good time.
You got like substitute Will at the school carnival, like being the dunk tank guy. That sounds
Mr.
like a
Ortner,
badass
not
time.
Mr. Will. Mr. Ortner
Okay,
got
excuse me,
in there.
Mr. Ortner.
That's right.
Yeah,
You
I said
address me by my
Mr.
correct
O.
teacher name.
Okay, so you.
That's right.
But you said you were also teaching weight room yesterday.
I taught weight room yesterday. Yeah.
So you go from K through 12? Do you
Yeah.
go all the way to senior?
Yeah, I'll teach whatever they'll let me teach.
Given your choice, where on the K through 12 spectrum does substitute Mr. Ortner like to land most often?
I want to be somewhere between kindergarten and 5th grade, and I want to be PE teacher. Because at that point, you still want to play the games.
Yeah,
You're
for sure.
excited for it. And it's not just the boys. It's the girls too. They're excited. They're ready to go. People want to play the games. I'll usually involve myself in said game. If it's like basketball and there's one team, that's clearly weaker than the other, well, then you join that team and you make sure that kids who don't normally get to score find a way to score.
Sure.
If you're playing like a dodgeball type of game, there's one team that's going to need more everybody back in type deals, right? So you do that. I like that. The problem with like high school age, so yesterday, like I'm teaching in the weight room. I love it, right? There are some kids that don't necessarily love being in the weight room and wanting to lift. And so sometimes you're trying to pull out teeth for like a couple kids where when you have those younger students, they're like, it's PE time, it's extra recess, let's run around and play. I do appreciate that a little bit more. Plus, like if you get on one of the kids, like when you're 4 and 5, the PE teacher, he made me sit out for 5 minutes. You'll forget that in 10 minutes and you'll love me again. If you're a high schooler or a middle schooler,
Find a way to hold that grudge.
You're going to hold that grudge, and I don't always appreciate that.
That's really good, Will, because there are usually one of two types of PE teachers. The one that you just described, where you're trying to make it more fun for everybody, even it out just a little bit, or there's the other that is like it's like this is the high school bully. He's remembering his best days, and he's just kind of trying to join in with the bullies now. It never works.
I had maybe the oddest PE teacher when I was in 7th grade. His name was Mr. Duffy, and he carried around like a metal briefcase, like you see like the bad guys carry in action movies, like the kind that often gets like chained to someone's wrist or whatever,
or like the football, like for the president.
And he'd wear his like PE clothes and like carry this metal briefcase and wear a trench coat. It was very odd. This is in Northern California. There was no trench coat weather, and everyone's like, "What is this guy's deal?" And one day, someone's just like, "Hey, Mr. Duffy, what is in that briefcase?" He opened it up. It was a bunch of mismatched socks.
Wait, he always
He's
carried this
rolling
around?
And he was
with
walking around with it.
socks?
He liked creating the intrigue. There was also a myth.
Yeah, he's weird.
There was also a myth that like his Volvo actually had a Porsche's had a Porsche's engine inside, which I don't think is actually possible. But there were all these mysteries surrounding Mr. Duffy. But we did debunk with what's in the metal briefcase? Just some old socks.
What a weird move. Like just trying to create. I wonder if there are more teachers that do that, because if you tell the kids anything, they'll believe it. I can't tell you how many times I've had students come up to my dad, because I teach in the same school district as both my parents, because I teach in a couple different districts, but they'll go up to my dad and be like, "Hey, your brother was my substitute teacher yesterday." And it's like, "No, that's my dad. Like, I'm his son. I'm younger than him." Like, "No, you're not. You're taller." So they create these their own stories. So I wonder if that's like what Mr. Duffy decided. He's like, "I'm going to show up and I'm just going to have like something weird about me, and the kids will create a story and then I'll just feed into it." It's a great idea. It would create your own entertainment.
Okay, so random tangent. Speaking of showing up somewhere and making people believe one thing, Tua showed back up to camp today, and I'm watching him now. I know people are talking about how Tua lost this weight. He looks different, though. What is it besides that? It's not just weight loss. What, like, is it facial hair? Is that what he's doing? I know that Tyreek.
Humidity.
I think Tyreek came out and said, "I saw him at the Pro Bowl. I told him he was fat as S, and now it looks like he's been on some Ozempic or something." So there's that going on, but I don't know, man. Tua looks like a different human and not just weight loss related. Like, did his face change? Did his head change? I don't know.
Yeah, is that like it's like the 5 o'clock shadow a little more so than like the full beard, at least in the picture that I'm looking at? I'm not quite sure.
By the way, I keep looking at the television and Tyreek Hill is on TV, and I swear Will's over there being like, "That's not Tua, right?" No, I know that's not Tua.
I keep
It's
waiting. I know, and I know you know. You're a big sports guy, Buck. I
kept
know
looking
you know.
You kept looking at the TV and looking at me like, does he really know which one's Tyreek and which one's Tua? Yes.
No, I I know you do, but like we have different channels on right now. I'm
Yeah.
over here. It's very much in our wheelhouses. I'm watching the gambling show. You're watching the sports show. And so I keep looking back like, well, am I going to get to see to it? I don't know. Maybe he's
I'll
been hanging
alert
out with
you.
Darius Rucker and now all of a sudden he's into like whiskey or something. Who knows? Maybe he got on that Zac Efron Botox. Have you seen the Iron Claw, by the way?
I have not seen the Iron Claw. I heard it was outstanding.
It's good, really sad. Not gonna spoil it, but they changed things to make it less sad, which is the craziest part of the whole thing. Because you look at it's a true story based
Right,
on
and
this
I
wrestling
had heard that
family.
it was based on that, or
Right.
based on a true story,
And
but I don't know the real story, so.
Well, after I watched it, I had to look up the real story,
Mhm.
and then you realize, like, wow, that was a really sad movie. You start watching, you're like, oh, it could have been so much worse. But Zac Efron in that movie, he has completely changed his face. Go and look at like Zac Efron Baywatch compared to Zac Efron's face in Iron Claw. He got a whole new jaw. He went full like Tom Brady.
It's trippy the way some of these stars are completely changing their complexion. Like I've seen, I mean, you get these random, kind of clickbaity Twitter or different social media accounts. Are like, look at this person do this, but all of a sudden, it does feel like there's this younger generation of actors and actresses who are completely able to, I guess, change their entire complexion without much thought. And I'm like, what actually happens here in the long run? Because it seems like someone like him is too young to be going through all that.
Well, but like in college, I had a lot of friends, not male, that got that got lip filler. Like that was a big thing. It was an interesting choice. After about a week, like you don't really notice it, but my understanding on the lip filler is you got to do that every like year or two, to like keep it like plump and
Doesn't
keep it
always
big.
work out either.
Yeah, well, yeah, and then you start getting the weird Euphoria girl lip thing, whatever her name was.
Not every I mean, it's literally just injecting stuff into your face, but not every
Botox,
surgeon
yeah.
is the same, and they don't all do it like correctly, so it can go back.
Well, and it messes your face up
That
for a
too.
little bit. Like you look like you got punched in the mouth for a good 3 days.
Bringing this back to sports, have you guys seen that recent interview with Tiger Woods? Speaking of a guy who's gotten a lot of filler, oh my gosh! So he did an interview at, I think it was like a Phil Hellmuth poker event, and I don't know what's going on with him. In addition to clearly having had some work done on his face, I don't know if he's just boozy. I don't know if he's hitting the pills again. But check out if you just look up like Tiger Woods interview, this will come up. It was kind of making the rounds the last couple of days. Playing audio of it really wouldn't do it justice, but something looks off with this dude. I don't know if he's going through it again or what, but that is a whole thing going on.
He needs to go bald. That picture at the poker tournament, go bald, dude.
Well, and everyone was
It's
saying, I
done.
think, was it the Masters he showed up and had to not have a hat on in the press conference? Everyone's like, oh, look at Tiger's hair's coming in strong. It looks good. It looks like he's got the plugs. It's working great. And now it's not looking great.
Just go bald. Bald is fine now. It's not the 80s where you couldn't be bald and everyone would make fun of you and you had to have that stupid U hairline.
Michael
Like,
Jordan
just
made
go-
bald cool in the 80s.
Just go bald. It's fine.
When it comes
You'll
to
look good.
When it comes to Tiger, I will never forget. He was on a box of Wheaties when we're all close to the same age. So
Mhm.
when we were teenagers, Will, you might have been maybe closer to 10-ish. He was probably
8 or 9.
Do you
yeah.
remember seeing Tiger on a
Yeah,
box of
of course,
Wheaties?
of course.
On the
I know
back
what
of
you're
that
talking
box was a picture of him and his dad. And it's always kind of imprinted into my mind. And all I see now is Tiger Woods looking just like his dad. And I'm sorry, Tiger, no amount of surgery, no amount of hair plugs are going to stop that. Just age, turn into your dad. The ladies are going to want you anyways, bro.
Yeah, that part is definitely true. We are learning from the Vancouver Ford text line. You can, of course, text us at 503-8646-FAN that apparently Zac Efron shattered his jaw when he fell while running, and his chin was hanging off of his face?
Yeah, now
That sounds brutal.
now I feel bad.
Well, I don't think you need to feel bad because you didn't know, and I don't think that Zac Efron's going to come after you personally, but that's wild. I can't imagine falling so hard running that my chin was hanging off of my face, but
and he does all kinds of interesting stuff like that. Like he used to have a YouTube show where he was doing all kinds of crazy workouts. Didn't he have like a real show on like a Nat Geo or a Discovery type channel? Where
I don't
he
know.
was running around. Yeah, I want to say he used to have like adventure with Zac Efron, and then he got like sick or something. It makes a little bit of sense.
Bear Grylls type of stuff?
Not quite, because it wasn't like full Survivor Man, but it'd be like he was going off on excursions and he'd do like giant sea fishing or like climb this mountain with the alpinist or something. I'll find it. I'll find it in the break.
He is a pretty interesting dude. I don't know that falling, running, and breaking your face makes you that much more interesting as much as it is unfortunate. But alas, we soldier on. We're gonna have to get to some actual sports here and not just talk about cosmetic improvements to our facial features. But there's a lot going on in sports, despite a little bit of a layoff in the playoff fervor that's been going on. Want to get to a little bit of football talk next. Some of the algorithms are starting to do their work for the upcoming season, and holy heck, do they like the Oregon Ducks. I understand that the hype is happening, but are we getting to a point where it's a little bit too much and they're getting a little bit too much credit? That's coming up next when we hit our poll question on Primetime on 1080 The Fan.
The end of the line for the
Primetime, I just learned during the break as I was over on X that the now famous or infamous Oilers fan is being pursued by adult film businesses for her services.
You knew that was coming, though.
Good for her.
You knew that was coming. Who knows if she can capitalize off of this financially, but
I hope so.
I can think of worse ways to get people's attention.
We still don't know who she is.
I know it's
That's the most surprising part.
Probably a good thing, though.
I would imagine so. I can't imagine the creeps across this fine globe of ours who would be trying to find out all too many things about this woman, and I think that's fine. We can probably just leave it that way. Let's get on to our poll question. Today's AAA heating and cooling poll question. You can, of course, visit them at AAAIAQ.com, a family business helping families for over 60 years. And this was spurred by a national football writer's tweet that I saw today, and it was pretty simple. He asked if we were talking enough about Oregon football this season. And being a national writer, this brings in all sorts of commentary and people from different areas, different fan bases, thinking Oregon's way too hyped, not enough, haven't heard anything. I think we're in a different bubble here because we talk Oregon football a lot. But the other thing that really interested me is that the ESPN Football Power Index for the upcoming season is now also out. They love Oregon. In fact, with their algorithm, they think Oregon is the second best team in the country. And we'll get into a few numbers as far as algorithmic projections that it has as to how good they think Oregon could be or what percentage chances they have to achieve certain things during the season. But the poll question today is this: are we talking enough about Oregon football's potential next season? Yes, we are. They're way overhyped. Yes, but it's warranted. No, they need more hype. Or no, they're not even good. Where would you guys land on this?
Well, I think locally, we're going to talk a lot about Oregon Ducks football because, I mean, it's the big game in town right now, right? Like, you are on the cusp of being in the playoffs the last 2 years, or at least in the conversation late into the year, right? Then this year, you get a huge transfer class that includes Evan Stewart, who's going to bolster your wide receiver room, and people are talking about him being even better than Tez Johnson, who Tez Johnson was, a top 60 player coming into this season in the college football power rankings. Then at safety, you've got Kobe Savage, who's coming over from Kansas State, absolute stud. You got Jabbar Muhammad, who was a lockdown corner last year for UW. So you take these positions where you already had good players or you were losing good players, all conference players, all American players from last year, and you're almost strengthening them. It feels like locally we're talking a lot about how great this team can be. When you look nationally, I don't believe that Oregon is going to get the same type of love because everyone is always going to beat on the drums of the Blue Bloods or the schools down south, whether that's the SEC schools specifically. You're going to be talking a lot about Alabama. What are they going to be able to do? Georgia, they feel like they're pissed off for greatness, like they want to reach heights that they haven't reached before. Or you're going to be talking about the ACC schools, specifically Clemson, where it's, can they get back to what they were? It feels like they should be able to, yet Dabo Swinney doesn't embrace the transfer portal. Aside from the military schools, Clemson is the only school that didn't take in a transfer. And then
it's a dadgum mistake.
Right. Well, I mean, shoot, even, what was it? Saturday or Sunday, he has a TikTok where he has 2 5-star recruits in the building. He doesn't know their name.
I saw that.
He made
so cringe.
He makes a TikTok video where it'd be like if right now we're talking and I tried to go over and talk to Jordan and I went, hey,
big guy.
Talk.
Like that time that Isaac tried to remember Joey's name while he was standing here in studio.
He's a 10-star now. You know, it's bad. So I feel like those schools are going to get more conversation than Oregon nationally. And so that's why you kind of get the best of both worlds, where locally we're talking about them a lot and they probably deserve it, but nationally we're not talking about them enough.
But so riddle me this, because I think that there's a kind of an interesting dynamic when it comes to hype. I feel like there is a large portion of sports fans that think we shouldn't hype a team or an athlete until they've proven it to us, until they've done it, until they've shown us that they can do it. There are I think especially locally, there are whole groups of people, B fans, UW fans, saying, what would we be hyping Oregon for? What have they won? Who have they beat? And what has Dan Lanning actually accomplished? There are legitimate questions to some of that. But on the flip side of it, you cannot deny that what they've done personnel-wise in the last 2 years has put them leaps and bounds ahead of where they were and put them right up there with the national contenders. So does the substance have to happen before the hype is warranted, or can you hype a team knowing that this is probably coming down the pike?
I think you can still hype this team. I mean, one, people will go out and say that this Oregon team hasn't won a big game. Well, when you look at their 3 losses to UW, it's by a combined 9 points.
Yes,
right,
right, and we know those were close. But people who are defenders of that will say, well, if Oregon was worth all that hype, they'd find ways to win those games.
Right, but then you can go down the list, and some of it is hindsight being 2020. But you played number 19 Colorado, and you beat the brakes off of them last year.
Mm-hmm.
You played number 13 Utah. You beat the brakes off of them on the road.
Mm-hmm.
You played number 16 Oregon State. You beat the brakes off of them, right? And you go back down the list from last year, and you played in a bunch of big games, and you won big games as well. So for me, it feels like it's an inevitability. When you keep getting this level of talent and you are right there and you're right on the cusp, but you seem to falter in big moments, but you barely falter, right? Like, yeah,
you're on the cusp. You're right there.
The conference title game, UW, they whooped you.
Yeah,
they
beat you
whooped
handily.
you. It got close at the end because you were able to get a couple quick touchdowns. But when you look at the game that was on the road in Seattle, you convert on 1 of your 3 4th downs. You win that football game. If your kicker makes a very makeable kick, you're in overtime in that football game. So it feels like it's an inevitability. And then you look at this Big Ten schedule that Oregon has to play. Your toughest game is going to be against Ohio State. You get that at home. You're on the road against Michigan, but do we really know what Michigan is right now? They're going to be a good team. They're going to be a borderline playoff team, but we don't totally know how that's going to change.
New coach, new personnel.
Right, and they lost a lot of that national championship
Yeah, including
team.
their quarterback, their running back, their head coach. Yeah.
Right. And then you're going to get UW, and you're getting that game at home. So when I go down and I look at this schedule, maybe Wisconsin scares you, but it feels like a favorable schedule that's going to allow Oregon they should be in the playoff, but you might be talking about them as a team that should probably be getting a bye.
I mean, if I look at it, and I'm trying to look at this objectively, because, we've hosted programs together for Ducks football. Y'all know I'm a huge Ducks homer. However, it sounds like the national media is looking at their trajectory of the program as well as what they've got. I mean, when you replace talent with like an Evan Stewart and a Jabbar Muhammad coming in 4-5 stars at huge positions.
2 of the very best available in their position in the country.
I mean, I don't understand how that doesn't automatically put you in the position along with the Dylan Gabriel, and you've got more coming in as well. You're set up at quarterback for the next 3 seasons, along with the things that you've had with Bo Nix's success in the last 2 seasons. It's the trajectory, and they've gone to 2 national championships even before Lanning is here. So yes, they have not won a national championship, no, but they've been there. They've won Fiestas. They've won Rose Bowls. I feel like it's just people are sick of hearing about Oregon and all the old money argument. Guess what? We're here, whether or not the money's the reason. Oregon is a top-tier program. I do think it's warranted because any other team with that record, last 10 and a half, 12 years of success, I would say would be getting the same treatment.
Yeah, and I think the things holding them back is that when they've been in the position to finally take it home, they weren't able to, and I think that at those points in time, they weren't equipped the right way to do that. And now, I would say those Oregon teams were overachieving. Now, I think achieving, I don't know that overachieving would be maybe winning a national championship, but I'm looking at some of these numbers based on the Football Power Index, and I can get into more about where it all comes from, but they take offensive, defensive, and special teams efficiency ratings. They run them through 10,000 permutations to try to get these results and numbers. It has Oregon with a 76% chance of making the 12-team playoff this year. It has Oregon as a 37.5% chance of winning their conference, the Big Ten, over Ohio State, who's only at 25%.
Well, the big key right there, too, you have them at what, 25%? Or that's what the ESPN Power Index had them at?
ESPN Power Index has them at a 37% chance of winning the conference and a 76% chance of making the playoff.
It is 100% going to hinge on your quarterback.
Yes.
I like Dylan Gabriel. I like what he was able to accomplish at Oklahoma. I like your offensive coordinator and Coach Stein and what he has been able to create. You saw it with Bo Nix last year. It was a completely different offense than what Dillingham was running. Dillingham liked to have more RPOs. He wanted to have options on every play. Stein wants to have his best athletes in space with the ball. If Dylan Gabriel can take that next step up the same way that Bo Nix did when he got to Oregon, and specifically when he got into Coach Stein's offense, and he can be as efficient as Bo, that's going to be the big thing. Can you be as efficient as Bo Nix was last year? The sky is the limit for this team. If Dylan Gabriel is the same player that he was at Oklahoma, you're going to have a good year. You are going to probably be a playoff team, barring injuries or some fluky things going down late. But I don't know that you'll be a national championship team. So at the end of the day, it's all going to depend on what type of quarterback is Dylan Gabriel going to be.
Can he distribute that ball to his weapons? Because that's what it sounds like is the key.
100%. Because Jordan James is going to be better than last year.
Yep.
Tez Johnson can be better than last year. Evan Stewart can be better than last year. Trayshawn Holden can be better than last year. You have a lot of very talented skill players, and we didn't even get into your biggest mismatch, which is your tight end room with both Herbert and with Ferguson, both coming back. You have matchup nightmares across the field. You got to have a quarterback that can get the ball to them. Right now, Dylan Gabriel has shown all the signs that he can do that, but he has to do it at an efficient level like Bo did.
We'll continue to take some of your thoughts on whether Oregon is too hyped, too talked about, not enough, and your thoughts about all of that, as well as some interesting quirks, I guess, as it pertains to the fallout of realignment. This thing has been coming at us like a downhill freight train for really all offseason, and there are some things getting lost in the mix, including bowl games. I'll explain that next, but first, Schultze has the SportsCenter update.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a SportsCenter update on 1080 The Fan.
This update is brought to you by Laurelhurst Market, Steakhouse, and Butcher Shop. Grab your meat for grilling season and take 10% off your Butcher Shop order when you dine in. Menus at laurelhurstmarket.com. First on The Fan, just 2 days until the start of the NBA Finals between the Dallas Mavericks and Boston Celtics. In Boston, the Athletics' Shams Charania reporting that center Kristaps Porzingis will be available after dealing with a strained calf. The Celtics 6.5-point favorites for Game 1. In Major League Baseball, a big announcement today. They have banned Padres shortstop Tucupita Marcano for life for betting on hundreds of baseball games, including Pirates games, while he played for the team. The league is also suspending Oakland Athletics pitcher Michael Kelly for 1 year for betting on baseball while he was a member of the Astros minor league system back in 2021. Speaking of the Athletics, they're hosting the Mariners tonight. George Kirby and Mitch Spence on the bump. First pitch at 6:40 p.m. on Roots Sports. They are still in first place, leading the Rangers by 4.5 games. And they also added outfielder Victor Robles to their roster today. They outrated third baseman Luis Urias to AAA Tacoma to make room on their 40-man. And in the NFL, Christian McCaffrey getting some more money. The Niners have added 2 years and $19 million to his contract, guarantees him $24 million overall. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schulte at the 1080 The Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
The afternoon round of the 10th Annual Fan Golf Classic, presented by Autotown GMC, is sold out. And the
Welcome back to Primetime, an SOB edition. Schultze on the board, Ortner to my left, and I am your host, Ryan Buckley. Lots going on the Vancouver Forward text line. Lots of thoughts on whether we're talking about the Ducks enough, whether the hype is warranted. This text here says, boys, they're not in the Pac-12. Big Ten is 2 steps up, and now they have some cold weather to deal with. That's from our friend John Bertrand. Somebody else said, if you ask me, Lincoln Riley and USC aren't a serious threat. Another one says you can say that Oregon has been close in the big games in the last few years, but one thing that is potentially concerning is the fact that almost every single one of their coaches prior to coming to Oregon had a reputation of being a stronger recruiter than on the field. Obviously, you need to get the talent to win, but perhaps we're seeing some of those reputations with the inability to execute in those close games.
I think the important thing to remember with that one specifically is a lot of those situations were also Lanning's first situation in a close game. They were Dillingham's first situation in a close game. They were Stein's first situation in a close game. And if you go back to the 2023 season, right? Oregon is in a close game against UW. Bo Nix gets hurt. He tries to come back onto the field, but Lanning doesn't have the awareness at that moment.
Couldn't call the timeout in the moment.
Didn't call the timeout and didn't let him back in the game, and you didn't get the first down. UW goes down, scores, and they end up winning that football game. This year, I felt like when they lost games, they took risks, but the risks that they took fit that team. Lanning is a little bit of a gambler, and I love that. Bet on your team to win.
Yeah, bet on your team to make a play, not that the other team won't later.
And you lost, right? You lost against UW. But when I look at those 2 losses, I feel like in 2023, you lost because of your inexperience, and the moment got a little bit too bright for you. You lost in 24, not because the moment got too bright for you, but for one day, you had pocket kings and you made a big raise in poker and the guy sitting next to you hit a flush or hit a straight and was able to stop you. How many times last year did Oregon go, not just in one game, but 4 fourth downs in a row? How many times did they go 0 for 4 in a row? If you take that UW game out, it didn't happen.
No.
You had one game where you went 0 for 4. Now, you could complain about the play calling. You could say, hey, you need to take the points at the end of the half. But that's not what Lanning's system is, right? And now, Coach Stein, that was his first opportunity in that spot. He will now come back better and have better play calls or better play designs, or he will know how to attack defenses in a way in those situations that should lead to more wins. If you have a similar situation this year where they're going for it on 4th down and they're not getting the ball across and getting the ball into the end zone, not getting the first down, then I think there's a deeper conversation about, are they, is this coach a better recruiter than they are a builder of talent? But when I've looked at this team on the field, I feel like the talent continues to grow and grow. Bo Nix was a guy that they were saying he might be lucky if he is an undrafted free agent signing, and he went top 15 in the draft. You cannot tell me that Oregon did not take Bo Nix and make him a better player.
Let me really quickly, too, just say that, hey, Camden Lewis has some blame on this, too. Like, I understand that they shouldn't have been in the position, and fans are right.
Kicker!
Yeah, come on. Dan Lanning should have coached them better to allow them to score and not even be in the position to tie it at the end of the game or at a half to make that decision and then it come back to bite you in the ass later. However, when you have to, man, Camden Lewis never showed up in the big moments. And hopefully, I say hopefully, but it's like almost a guarantee that they will have a better kicker now going forward. And heck, maybe the national writers are thinking that too.
Another text from the Vancouver Fort text line just says, I'd rather have a gambler than ...
We just roll, brother.
Cristobal.
Right.
Amen to that. I think that I would rather have a guy that's going to take shots in the big moments, and if that lands you with a couple L's, fine. But to your point, Will, I do think that this is a staff that is they have to learn at some point. And I think we're clearly in an era where the very best in this profession, coaching-wise, are going to be the ones that can get the talent in the door and coach on the field, and there's not a lot of overlap in that Venn diagram where there hasn't been historically. Usually a coach is in one camp or the other. It's been very hard for the good, experienced in-game matchup development coaches to also be aces on the recruiting trail. It's been hard for some of those young, awesome recruiters who don't have a ton of game experience to be huge difference makers on Saturday when when it's time to call a big play. And I think that this staff is young and energetic, and that is the beginning of the foundation for being able to do both. And so maybe we haven't seen the X's and O's prowess out of this staff yet, but maybe it's on the way because they're still figuring it out.
When I look at that defense too, from last year to 2023, the growth that they made just by landing getting his guys in. When you run that 3-3 mint defense, it is designed to have a lot of blitzes and a lot of twists. And to be able to run that defense, you have to have a D-line that is working in complete chemistry in conjunction with the linebackers who's working in complete conjunction and chemistry with the secondary. It is a very confusing defense for the offense to try and stop, but it's also a confusing defense for the defense to run. It takes time to understand, hey, we're getting this look out of this offense, so we want to run this fire zone matched with this stunt on this side. Hey, we were originally in cover 2, but now this came over, so we have to shift and we're in cover 4 or whatever, right? There are a lot of things that just takes time to grow. And what I saw between 23 and 24 is that he started to get his guys in that could play at that fast level, that could also communicate with each other. And from everything that I've heard coming out of spring ball, that D-line got bigger. You wouldn't think that D-line could get much bigger after last year.
Yeah.
It got bigger. It got faster. It got stronger. You look at a kid last year in Uwe Ungalale who came in and made a lot of big plays. He was still a little undersized. He was 18 for most of the year. You're not telling me that a full year in the system that he's going to make growth. You're telling me that a kid like Blake Purchase isn't going to grow.
Well, and a lot of these guys, too, if you remember, they had so much depth here that a lot of these guys weren't getting the same number of reps as guys as talented them with other programs. They were maybe only playing 40% of snaps and whatnot. And so even though there's plenty of talent there, we may be starting to just scratch the surface with some of these guys.
Right. Well, the depth that you have is the reason they're playing 40% of the snaps that they might somewhere else is because the depth is incredible. And that's what Lanning wants to create, because then he's got guys firing on all cylinders and they're coming constantly. They're going to get their 2 plays at 100% and then they're out. And the next 2 guys are going to get their 100% for 2 plays. I just think that you have to look at it as like a Rome wasn't built in a day type of situation. And every single year, it feels like they're getting better and better. The recruiting classes say that. When you watch the games and you truly take notes and you pay attention, you can see that there's growth from the coaching staff in the play call decisions that are being made, in the timeout decisions that are being made. And you can see the growth in the players that are there 1 year, 2 years. Some now are going to be there for their 3rd year in a row. You're just going to continue to see the team get better and better and better. It does feel like this is the year for them to make that leap.
To your point, Will, about how quickly these guys are learning all these schemes, Dan Orlovsky talking about quarterbacks going into the league, he showed his old playbook when he entered the league, and it was like a literal phone book. And I know that these guys aren't quarterbacks on the defensive line, but to quantify this, Will, or maybe give a little bit of a visualization for people, I mean, is like the set of plays the defensive guys, especially on the line, are learning, is it like half that size? I mean, are we talking like a full? I mean, this isn't just like plays from Madden on a screen, right? We're talking like some serious reading and some learning of a system. So it is going to take a bit.
Right. Well, it's going to take a bit. And then in reality, once you get into a game situation, you have your X amount of plays that you're going to call, right? Like in spring ball, you're going to have a ton of X's and O's mistakes. Like when you're watching a spring ball practice, it should look at times like hot garbage, because you're going to have plays in there that are, one, called in a situation that you would never call it in, because you want to see how your players are going to react, but also you just want to see what works with your team and what doesn't. So you have this big playbook, and it's going to be large through the beginning parts of summer camp, right? Once you get into a game week, you know what a team does, and you know how you want to attack that team and what's going to work and what's not. So it gets pared down. When you look at it, you'll have your 1st and 10 play calls. Those are going to be bigger than most. You're probably going to stay in your base defense. But the beauty of this Mint D is you can take the strengths of your team. Like when Lanning was at Georgia, he had a lot of fast outside linebackers. Like Nolan, right? The Nolan kid, he's now playing for Philly.
Nolan Smith?
Is
that
right? What Lanning liked to do with Nolan is he liked to get him on the edge, and he liked to twist him inside and outside, but he would line him up directly over his defensive end. He would do this because then the offensive line did not know where he was going, so they'd have to come in and set together so that way he couldn't beat them to the inside. Well, the problem with doing that is when you have a kid who can run a 4-3 off the edge, you are now out of position for him to run the hoop on you at tackle, and they were able to do that a lot. The other beauty of that Georgia team is you had Nakobe Dean, who was small but strong as you know what. So you can add him on your A-gap pressures, and he's coming right behind Davis, so no one can see him because of how big Davis is in that front line. Then he's already up under your pads as an offensive guard, and he'll run right through you just because you're out of position. So what Lanning likes to do is he likes to take the strength of his players and put them into situations where, hey, we're going to get you in a blitz here, or we're going to drop you into coverage here because you can actually guard the tight end and this linebacker can't. And so some of it, when you come into each season, is it's going to look a little bit different than it did the year before. There were a lot more blitzes and stunts this last season because the guys understood it, as opposed to the year before where they'd only had one spring ball and one fall camp into the system that he's running. So it's just going to take time, and I think you're going to see even more of that defense get used, and more of those fire zones and more of those twists and more of those stunts and those exotic blitz looks this year than you did last year, because guys have had at least 2 spring balls with it.
We may revisit a little more Oregon football later in the show. Coming up later in the show, how dumb are these guys? MLB edition, a local team embracing one of the worst promotion ideas of all time, plus the idea of making it illegal to duck your rivals. That's all ahead. But next, we need to get into how college football realignment has really screwed up the whole bowl system. That's next on Primetime on 1080 The Fan. Welcome back to Primetime. College football realignment, and really the entire college football landscape has been a bit of an earthquake since the end of the season. Lots of moving parts. Some people running around willy-nilly like they are chickens with their heads cut off. And then we have the fallout that affects some other parts that we don't necessarily pay as much attention to. We, of course, know that this season we're getting the new 12-team playoff, which I think we can all agree is a good thing overall.
Mm-hmm.
And with that means there's going to be a bit of a bowl game shift. So for those playoffs, we know that the way that is all put together seems totally fine. First round games will be played at home stadiums of the team playing in the game. Then they will essentially move to all your New Year's Six Bowl sites for the remaining playoffs, and there will be a rotation of what gets to be the national championship, the semifinals, etc. The fallout that hadn't really been considered, or at least hadn't been considered as the main focal point, is what happens to all the other bowls, because lots of these bowls and their bowl committees and the people that show up with the fancy blazers that come to see your team in the month of November and decide whether they want to invite you down to their, prestigious whatever it is bowl, they have bowl affiliations with certain conferences, and some of those conferences have changed members drastically. Some of them have ceased to even exist. And so Brett McMurphy of the Action Network, a great college football scribe, has pointed out that the Alamo Bowl, which Oregon has played in a number of times, was hoping to be able to continue to select either Texas or Oklahoma to play in that bowl game, should their record make them essentially eligible for that bowl. The Big 12 used to have an affiliation with, or has an affiliation with, the Alamo Bowl. That's why you get the Oregon versus TCU matchup that Oregon fans want to forget so badly. But obviously, Texas and Oklahoma moving to the SEC means they're no longer a Big 12 team, so how could you pick them for the bowl game? Well, that also leads to another question of, well, who's the Pac-12 representative then? Because the Pac-12 has broken up and gone to multiple different conferences: Big 12, Big 10, Mountain West. And so the issue now for the bowl committees is, who do we fill our bowls with, since we had all these partnerships with conferences that have changed? Well, I'll tell you, and it's not going to make a whole lot of sense, and I think figuring it out is going to make even less sense. The bowl affiliations will have a legacy program that essentially keeps teams in their same conference for bowl purposes and for bowl purpose selection. So the Alamo Bowl will still have the choice of a Pac-12 team, air quotations, that could be playing in the Big 10, in the Big 12, in the Mountain West, or independent. Now, that also means that Oregon, when they place second or third or first, granted, if you're going to the college football playoff, this is a non-issue. So let's say it's fourth or sixth or something like that. That won't be a Big 10 Bowl affiliation. You're not going to go to the Pinstripe Bowl or whatever. You're still going to be a Pac-12 team going to, I don't know, a El Paso Sun Bowl or something like that. So it's going to affect a ton of teams. It's just a mess, though, and I don't know what we're supposed to do about it.
Which is such a bummer, because now you're going to have situations where, like, the Big 12 and the SEC have a lot of bowl games where they play each other or are supposed to play each other. Well, guess what? If Oklahoma or Texas, they're not one of the top teams, they're not a team that's making the playoff, guess who's going to get nabbed for the Outback Bowl?
Yeah.
So you might have Oklahoma play, I don't know, let's go Kentucky twice in 1 year. And I don't know the schedules, but there is nothing worse than having two teams that have already played each other play each other again in a bowl game. The whole idea of the bowl game is to grab teams from another conference and see how your conference matches up. A lot of people like to say, well, the Big Ten's a step up for Oregon and USC and UW. At the top end, sure. When you look at Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan, yeah, that might be a step up. But when you look at the middle to bottom end of what the Big Ten is, it's pretty similar to what the middle to bottom end of the Pac-12 was. Some years, it was even worse, right? So you're now telling me that you could have these lesser bowls where the whole idea is, hey, let's have two teams that don't normally play each other, and then we'll see which conference is the best, and it could just be two teams that are already in the same conference playing each other? That
Exactly
sucks.
right. Exactly right.
That
So yeah,
sucks.
a team that may have gone from the ACC to the Big Ten and then from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten, they could be placed in a Pac-12 ACC bowl, even though they've already played each other as Big Ten opponents in that same season.
That sucks.
None of it makes any sense. There was always going to be some sort of fallout for all the shuffling of the deck chairs that we've done in this offseason, and that's just one of them. So
Another fallout of conference realignment.
hopefully it won't impact the local teams too much, because hopefully they're playing in playoff games and not the secondary tier bowls that this would apply to. But we'll move on. What we need to get to next is a little bit of baseball talk, and we'll start with the question: how dumb are these guys? Or which one's dumber? It's hard to say. That's coming up next on 1080 The Fan.
Back the Reds versus the Rockies. I'm Joe Ostrowski here to help you beat the books with BetQL. Cincinnati put up double digits in its series debut versus the Rocks on Monday, and the BetQL model likes the Reds.
let's see, Ortner and Buckley with you. Isaac still out in Salina, Kansas. Suk still out somewhere around Northern California. Suk going to be back on Thursday. Isaac will be back next week. Want to thank you for joining us. As always, you can follow us on the Vancouver Ford text line, 503-8646-FAN. That's how you can get a hold of us. You can also check out our YouTube channel at 1080 The Fan. You can comment there and see our lovely mugs live. I'm not sure that's why people are tuning in, but that is a thing that you can do. And
wearing a new Mariner shirt today. Surprising nobody.
Look at
There
that.
you go.
Well, it is time for us to talk a little bit of baseball because even though we will get to something a little bit later this hour about one of the best/worst baseball promotions ever, it's being rebooted here by a local team, we first need to talk about a couple of dum-dums in Major League Baseball. And the one that you've heard about, presumably, we talked a little bit about yesterday, and that would be current, well, now former Padres and former Pirates shortstop Tucupita Marcano. Now, it was being reported yesterday that he was facing a lifetime ban. That has, in fact, become the case. He has been banned for life from baseball. He bet on baseball. He bet on his own team. This was last year when he was a member of the Pirates, and he bet. Now we've now gotten all the figures on his bets, and that is the important part here. Because as bad as it is to bet on your own team, it might be even worse to do this poorly. He bet over $150,000 on baseball in general. $87,000 of that was on Major League Baseball. Probably a no-no, especially if it involves your team. We've then come to find out that 25 of his bets included bets on the Pirates, the team that he was playing for, albeit he was on the injured list. Do you know how many of those bets he won that included his own team?
4.5%.
That would be zero. He won zero.
Oh my God.
Zero bets that included the Pirates. His overall returns, you were close on the 4.5.
I had him flipped.
4.3% win rate on all of his betting.
There you go. Good job, Will.
You couldn't do that if you tried. If
It's
I gave you
so
each,
bad.
if I gave, I mean, that is just under 5%. That means he is losing 19 out of 20 bets. If I gave you each $100 and said, start betting $5 units, I promise, blind, throwing darts at a piece of paper, you could do better than that. It's remarkable how bad that is.
Well, I don't know if you saw it, but I think most of his bets were parlays.
I know that
Still.
a lot of them included parlays, but if you are getting such a I mean, at some point in time, you have to realize your parlays aren't working because your win rate is just dog mess.
You would think, too, like there'd be a point where it's like, I think I'm going to start straight betting now. I'm going to not bet the parlays. Maybe I'm going to, but then again,
Maybe get into props. By the way, there's Tua again, Will. It's not Tyreek Hill. It's just Tua Tagovailoa.
he's got a little thicker. Maybe
No,
a
he's
new tattoo?
gotten thinner apparently. Well,
Oh,
thicker
no.
than thinner, I guess.
The
According
hair's
to Tyreek.
thicker,
See,
the
there he
face
is.
is thinner.
Doesn't his face look different?
Yeah.
I think it's the lack of facial hair.
It
I think
is.
he lost the beard,
Well,
and that's why.
And someone on the Vancouver Ford text line did say that he got veneers, so that's why his teeth are super
His
white.
teeth do look whiter. I'll
But
give you that.
yeah, it almost looks like they got Talia in there, or
Yeah, that's
Talia?
yeah,
How do you
that's
say
right,
his
Talia.
name? Talia,
Uh-huh.
Talia, his brother.
But back to Tucupita Marcano.
Yeah, I just want to know, like, I like to gamble. I think I'm pretty decent at it. I do okay, I'm right around 50%, over 50% in football, which is my sport. How are you a professional player and you are nowhere near the 50% Mendoza line on gambling on your own sport? Like, if you told me he was gambling on like soccer or American football or, whatever, a sport that wasn't his, it's like, oh, okay, you like to watch the games, you're like a fan, you don't totally understand it, get it. You are gambling on your own sport.
Your own team.
It shouldn't be that hard to figure out who's good and who's bad. You should have the inside track.
It also shouldn't be that hard to like, and I don't want. I'm not trying to like give him ideas on how to be a better degenerate,
gambler.
but you can't find a better angle. One of your teammates has been like, seems like he's slumping and he's not pulling out of it. Like, bet that guy's props or something. Like, there's so many things that you could potentially do to only be winning less than 5% of your bets. It floors me. So that's number one, and I thought that was pretty bad.
It's bad.
It is. However, I might point the finger and say that somebody who was on the winning side of more bets than they were losing bets is even dumber, because Michael Kelly of the Oakland Athletics, he actually won. He's up about 28% on his bets.
Must be millions.
Which seems great. He's probably, if he's up 28%, he's probably hitting it at a 60% rate or 65%, something like that.
Probably bet more straight ups or props or something
Like
yeah.
that. But he's the pitcher for the Oakland Athletics. It's now been suspended for an entire year. He bet less than $100 and spread it out over 9 bets. So dude was betting roughly $11 a bet, only to make $28 total and lose $750,000 in salary because you're suspended for the year. At that point, he's not even trying to find a financial edge. You could do DoorDash and make more money than that. Like, you didn't need. Like, that to me might be even dumber than losing the bets. At least that guy was wagering big money. This guy blew the whole thing over $10 bets.
Right. Like, I can get behind Marcano. I can get behind Marcano a little bit because think about it. You tore your ACL, you're laid up, you're hurt, you're bored.
What else am I going to do to make some cash?
All right, I'm going to try and double my investment. I need to keep betting because now I'm going to get hot. If you're just betting $11, what are you doing? You're a moron.
A total of $99 and change in wagers.
You
That's
are risking your entire career. You're lucky it's a one game or one
year
suspension.
You could be out for life like this, as people are calling on the text line, Taco Pizza.
Do you think that like Rob Manfred was looking at it and was like, look, he didn't hit the $200 threshold. We cannot suspend him for the whole year. Like, is there a threshold? Like, well, if you hit this amount, that equals 82 games. If you hit this amount, it's one season. If you hit this amount,
I imagine Manfred
life.
just sitting in his office being like, dude, I'm suspending you for just being that stupid. I don't even care about the $100 because it's inconsequential.
I'm sure the rules back then, I mean, there's been Rule 21 in Major League Baseball, I'm pretty sure, since the Black Sox scandal.
Sure.
I mean, which is betting on your sport will get you banned for life, hands down. Minor leaguers, it kind of seems to muddy the waters a little bit since they're only getting suspended for a year. It's because they didn't bet on like Major League Baseball games while they were a Major League player. But it just does make me wonder if they were confused about these rules, because we're talking about numbers from 4 years ago, guys. 2020, 2021. Now, Marcano, this was up until like November of 2023. This was very recent. But I am a little confused at what these minor leaguers are having to go through, because it does seem like we've come so far with all of these betting apps advertising like now every 5 seconds. And we were very, very early on in that point at 2020, 2021, where the waters, I feel like maybe we're still a little muddy for these young minor leaguers. I don't know. It wasn't that much cash.
So here's my only pushback on that, right? When you go into a athletic season, and this is coming from a dude who played a lot of football that, aside from maybe my parents and people who like Central Washington football, so like 100 people, no one really cared about, right? Fair. Every single year, you were sat down on the first day of camp. You cannot bet on sports. The only spot where I could maybe kind of get Kelly's point is, not his point, but like maybe he got a little confused is, I forget what the exact number is, but you are allowed to play fantasy sports as a collegiate athlete as long as the winning amount doesn't reach a certain threshold. I believe it's $100, maybe it's $200.
Like for a season or per contest?
For a season. So if the three of us are in fantasy football and we're in a league together, it's only $33 that we can all put in. The winner gets $99.
Gotcha.
Because if I win and I'm still playing college football and I get 100, I'm banned, right? That can't happen.
New Heisel problems.
So maybe Kelly could be like, I'm a complete moron. I rolled in and I was not paying attention and I wasn't listening. And I thought as long as I didn't get over that $100, I was fine. And that's why he only got, his suspension. Maybe that's something he could fall into. Maybe there's a conversation to be had there. But when it comes to gambling, you are told day one, every single year when you walk into the building, do not bet on sports. let alone bet on your sport and your team. So I don't have a whole lot of sympathy.
I
for
don't
these
either,
guys.
especially when you're just like, oh, maybe I'll just dabble. Like you just have to
It's
have.
not that hard. Just don't do it.
I mean, you got to be dumber than a box of rocks to think that's a good idea. I
It-
just can't put it together.
It does make me think, just back to my original take on sports betting and athletes, is you should not do anything until you are done with sports. And no teams, no employees of teams, nobody associated with the world of pro sports, and that includes minor leaguers, unfortunately, should be allowed to do it until they're done. Like, whether they retire at 30 or 40, that's when you can start.
Right. Like that's when you do the real degenerate thing and you find friends who put bets out like, oh, I don't know, maybe someone who puts out college football and NFL videos on Twitter, and then you just follow along and see if they win. That could be a fun thing to do that maybe I did and might be the most degenerate thing I've ever done, where I wasn't betting anything but was still excited for other people's bets.
Vancouver 4 text line in. This person says, I have a fraternity brother who's now an athletic director at a D1 school, and we still do our college pick'ems for football, but we do not do it for money. There's a reason that he still participates in our group, and that's because it's obviously not going to fly if he's an AD and he's betting on cash. We also have a March Madness group that's also not for money, so it's pretty easy to see where the line is and how to not cross it.
Right. It's right in front of you, and they tell you day one, and they tell you every single year. I sat through that meeting 6 times.
In no uncertain terms do you know exactly what the score is and exactly what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do.
There's no real confusion. Like I said, the only one that maybe kind of sort of is he thought, well, as long as I don't go over the $100 threshold, I'm okay. That's the only one where I can say, you're a complete moron, but maybe I can see how you got there.
The golden anniversary of a total disaster is upon us. We will give you the details and tell you what one local team is doing to replicate it. That's coming up next on Primetime on 1080 The Fan.
The home
Primetime, it is time for us to pay homage to one of the best/worst promotions in the history of sports. But before we do, an anniversary of another kind. I saw a special clip circulating today, and that would be one of a former Mariners manager that I had even forgot managed the team. Schulte, do you remember from the clip what the date was on it or what year that was?
It was June 4th, 2008, and I remember the Mariners 08 season very well, my friend.
So give us a little refresher about what all was going on at this point in time before we get to the audio.
Were they winning?
So the season beforehand they were, and it was a very odd locker room situation, but in the midst of a 9-10 game winning streak, Mike Hargrove, their manager in 07, retired, which I don't think has ever happened before or since in Major League Baseball. From what I've heard, later on, I actually got to talk to, at the time, Mariners closer J.J. Putz at like an event for the Hops that he was doing a few years ago. But I asked him, I'm like, dude, what was going on in that locker room? Why the hell did he quit? And he's like, him and Ichiro did not get along, like, at all. And Ichiro was the star of the team at the time.
Interesting.
In the midst of his 200-plus hit seasons, Major League record that he set for seasons in a row with those. So at least some reasoning as to why that happened to lead to this rant. John McLaren, the manager in this rant that you're talking about, took over for Hargrove at that point. They did not make the playoffs in 07, but they had a good enough run. Richie Sexson, Adrian Beltre, Felix had just come up. So this was kind of like the core that was leading them at this point, had enough of a great season to extend McLaren's contract and give him his first full-time managerial job ever in his career. The Mariners went out. They spent a little bit more money. They had $100+ million payroll. And in this rant, we're basically in the middle of becoming the first team ever with $100+ million payroll to have 100 losses in the history of Major League Baseball, because everybody from Jose Lopez to, I think Ryan Roland Smith was like a bright spot that one year, who's podcasting now and doing a whole bunch of stuff for the Mariners. But from Jose Lopez down to Richie Sexson, everybody was playing terrible. I believe GM Bill Bavasi had just gotten fired a couple weeks before this, and McLaren just... yeah, it had gotten bad.
So let's hear what McLaren had to say on this date in history in 2008.
We're playing our ass off every day and got nothing to show for it. I'm tired of losing. I'm trying to get my ass beaten, and so are those guys. We're going to change this around and get after it, and only we can do it. The fans are pissed off, and I'm pissed off, and the players are pissed off. And that's the way it is. There's no easy way out of this. Can't feel sorry for ourselves. Got to buckle it up and get after it. Tired of damn losing this every night, and we bust our ass. It's got to be a total team effort to turn this thing around, and that's it.
Wow.
Nailed
Thank
it.
you.
I mean, bravo. I did not remember that whatsoever, and that popped up today, and I was like, holy cow. Okay.
Honestly, I know that rant. I could repeat it word for word like Rudy repeats the old coach, Notre Dame speech in the movie Rudy. That is for me. I watched that live. I got goosebumps just now.
So that was 16 years ago, but 50 years ago on this day, we had a very special night in Cleveland. That, of course, was 10-cent beer night. And for anyone who's followed the history of baseball and some of the wacky promotions that have happened, this goes alongside Disco Demolition as one of the absolute worst ideas, at least the fallout from one of what started as a best idea turned into a worst idea. Are you familiar with the details of this night, Will?
Yeah, well, vaguely. I mean, it's, hey, here's 10 cents, you can buy a beer. And then in a shocking development, a bunch of dudes had a little bit too much, or maybe a lot of bit too much, a lot of fighting, a lot of arrests.
Yeah, so Cleveland was hosting the Rangers, and there were 25,000 fans on hand. Do you want to take a guess at how many beers were sold?
Let's go double. So 25,000, so 50,000?
A little bit higher, 60,000 beers got sold. A little bit, so
That's
more
not too bad.
More than two per person. But if you probably factor out the kids who aren't drinking,
Right.
other age people who are just choosing not to. I'm trying to wonder how many people consumed that 60,000. Was it 18,000? Was it 12? Like
yeah.
what's the number there? But what it resulted in were 19 streakers, 7 arrests, and 7 people going to the emergency room. Now, I'm reading more about the game. The manager for Texas at the time was Billy Martin, notorious manager for the Yankees, hothead, big temper. I guess during the 9th inning, things were becoming so unruly with the fans, starting to kind of spill out into the field, that he told his team to everyone grab a bat and basically get ready to defend defend yourselves. So that was the last time that kind of promotion happened at the major league level. However, and it has been moved, so you can now be a part of it in later in July, but there was going to be a 10-cent beer night with the Portland Pickles. They said, with such a disaster, how could we not bring it back? So I love that they're leaning into this horrible idea of a promotion and making good on it. The catch here, I have learned, is that the 10-cent beers will be served in half-ounce cups. So you will still get...
So it's a shot?
Essentially, because I think per OLCC regulations, they can't really give out full 10-cent beers, or at least they have to monitor the volume. So what it'll amount to is that you can still drink the normal amount of beer, and I think it will be cheaper, but they had to get a little bit fudgy with the numbers there and the volumes so that they could make this thing happen. But I love the creativity from the marketing aspect of it.
I'll tell you what, as far as baseball ideas go, there's no one doing it better than the Pickles right now. You go down their schedule of all the different nights that they have, the different, like one day you can go there. Maybe it's every Tuesday. You can get a Portland Pickle tattoo.
Tattoo Tuesday. I'm reading about this as well, and I believe I think if you get a tattoo of a pickle, it's free. I think you can get other tattoos that you pay for, but yeah, if you're willing to go out and get a pickle, I think that'll be on the house. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they're doing a ton of fun stuff out there. I know that our boys from the Hot Corner were actually going to throw out the first pitch last night. That game got rained out, so it's going to happen a little bit later in the year. But they're having a Pac-2 Memorial Night that Joe and Patrick are going to be a part of, and so Pickles doing a lot of fun things out over there at Lentz Park. I will definitely be getting out there with my family at some point this season. Maybe we'll try to do it on July 18th when the 10-cent beer night is officially rescheduled.
I'm down for that. That's also the perfect little segue, because guess what comes out at midnight that night? NCAA Football 25.
Ooh, okay.
Go get a couple 10-cent beers responsibly, take an Uber home, and then go download the new video game.
Okay, so since you're into that, I have to ask these questions. I haven't played that game in a really long time. I used to love it. I also haven't really played many video games at all since around the time that game ceased to be. Yeah. But I've started to see some previews and features come out that make it look really cool. Like,
it looks awesome. Like, from all the different stuff. So like Oregon has 20 different uniform combos.
Depending on your school and how much they flex with their uniforms, it's more than just like home and away. You can do 20 plus combos with Oregon.
You can do. I saw one where the guy had a hoodie on, jersey rolled up, one sleeve hoodie, one sleeve completely cut off. That will not happen as my coach. Since I will be running my dynasty, we will be dressed as a team. We will all wear white socks, just like Billy Napier wants his team to do down at Florida. No, it's very exciting. This game was my favorite game growing up. I had 2014, obviously for years, because that's the last one that they made. I have not bought a new system since NCAA 2014 came out. I will be going to purchase a brand new system so that I can play this game. And this will be the first game that I have bought in probably 5-6 years to play. Like, that's how big of a deal it is. A bunch of my buddies from college, like, we used to find like a PS3 or an Xbox 360 and someone who still had the game that didn't break yet, and we'd play like all night. We're talking about forming new dynasties. Everyone's trying to make sure they have the same system so that we can all play against each other online. I cannot wait.
The hype is real.
There is going to be a lot of work that is pushed off for like 2 weeks after July 18th.
Well, so I saw some of the new features include that when you go to call an audible now, if you're the road team in a raucous stadium, that some of the routes will kind of get jumbled or messed up. Like like it'll impact the receiver's ability to either hear you or run the right place that they're supposed to. I also saw that they have a new thing in there where basically if the clock and timeout situation benefits you, you can automatically go into the victory formation, and people are calling it the anti-Cristobal.
Yes.
Because like the game will tell you when you actually don't have to run any more plays.
Right. They also have they don't have all of the traditions, but they're going to play Mo Bamba for Penn State. They'll play Neck for LSU. I don't think they have jump around or Enter Sandman.
Well, I wonder if they'll do Shout for the Ducks. I guess we'll have to see.
That's one in there. That'll be interesting. It looks like an awesome game. It is also really funny too, because now there's actual players are obviously in the game. there are a lot of actual players that are realizing what their true overall ranking would be, and it makes me laugh every time that like the backup D tackle at Texas State is like, "What do you mean I'm 55 overall?" Like, dude, you're at Texas State and you're the backup. Like, you're still better than me, but you're not gonna be a 99.
I think that wasn't it. It was Khalil Mack who wore number 52 because when he played for Buffalo, they had him as number 52. Or yeah, they had him at
52
overall 52 rating. And he's like,
Yep.
I'll show
Good for
you.
him.
Yeah. Well, I will be excited to see the reception of that game. I don't know how much I'll be playing it because I will not have a system, but maybe I'll have to come over to Ortner's house to play. We need to take a brief departure from sports and get on over to In the News, where the Portland Trailblazers are acquiring real estate and everything you need to know about the Rose Festival's Fleet Week. That's next on 1080 The Fan, but first, Schultze with SportsCenter.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a SportsCenter update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, just 2 days until the start of the NBA Finals between the Mavericks and Celtics in Boston. The Athletics' Shams Charania reporting that Kristaps Porzingis will be available despite dealing with a strained calf. The Celtics a 6.5-point favorite right now for Game 1. Major League Baseball has banned Padres shortstop Tucupita Marcano for life for betting on hundreds of baseball games, including Pirates games, while he played for Pittsburgh last year. The league is also suspending Oakland A's pitcher Michael Kelly for 1 season for betting on baseball while he was a member of the Astros minor league system in 2021. Speaking of the A's, they're hosting the Seattle Mariners tonight. George Kirby and Mitch Spence on the bump. First pitch set for 6:40 p.m. on Root Sports. The Mariners are in first place in the AL West by 4.5 games over the Rangers. They also signed outfielder Victor Robles today officially and outrighted Luis Urias to AAA to make room on the 40-man roster. And in the NFL, the San Francisco 49ers signing running back Christian McCaffrey to a 2-year, $19 million extension. It guarantees him $24 million overall when you add it with his current deal. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schultze at the 1080 The Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
The Fan Merch Locker is now open with shirts from the fan shows and hosts you love. Get yours now at 1080thefan.com.
This month at Car
They're both parts unknown around the U.S. Well, we know where those parts are. It's Salina, Kansas, and Lake Tahoe, California. Easy enough. But without further ado, today is Tuesday, June 4th, and it is time for In the News. A lot of national days today, so bear with me. First of all, one near and dear to my heart, it is National Cheese Day. Favorite cheese? Go.
Yes.
Mozzarella.
Oh, okay.
Tillamook Sharp. Not any Sharp. Tillamook Sharp.
Nice.
Which is literally a top 5 sharp cheese in all of the world, as we just found out a few months ago.
One of my good friends,
Local.
Jared, just took a job with Tillamook in the last year. He's loving it there. But yeah, Tillamook is easily my number one local go-to. I'm not as much of a sharp cheddar as I am a medium cheddar man. Also, big time fan of Havarti. If we're going Italian food though, pastas and pizzas, I'm with you on the mozzarella. So no arguments there.
Havarti dill, a good one.
Havarti dill for sure.
Really quickly, it's so much fun to go to the Tillamook factory and like watch everything.
I've still never
being
been.
done. Oh,
Yeah, I've never been.
Buck, you got to take the fam out and do it.
I figure I got to take my kiddo down there.
And Will, you got to take yourself out there.
I'm not going until I have a kid. That seems like a kid activity.
If you're at the beach and you're wondering, something to do anyways. But when you go in there, you can see everybody kind of packaging cheese up in the factory. And I will never forget when I was a kid, one guy kept falling asleep and got removed from the line. So I never knew what happened to that guy.
I bet they didn't want you to see that.
No,
He's now cheese.
hoping he didn't get fired.
Got turned into Swiss cheese by that machinery.
Yeah, just having a bad day. But watching a dude falling asleep, that was pretty funny there.
It is also National Cognac Day. Either of you dabble with the cognac?
My wife does.
Yeah?
Like
She
alcohol?
loves cognac.
Yeah, which I mean, isn't like Hennessy a cognac?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's a college drink.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
one that's like, all of my favorite rappers say this, and then at 21 or maybe, well, no, 21. We're going to say at 21 because that's definitely when I started drinking. At 21, then you have it and you're like, this sucks.
Do y'all know what cognac actually is?
Isn't it?
It's a brandy, right?
Yeah, it's like a French brandy.
It is a fermented champagne.
What? Is that right?
That is what a cognac is.
Look at that.
Branded, I guess
That's
you
why
could
it
do
sucks.
bubbly water or bubbly wine because it doesn't have to be French, but maybe it does. But cognac is, that is.
So it's champagne that got turned into hard alcohol?
pretty much.
Genius.
It's not very good.
Some people are smarter than me. That's the person who figured that out's one of them.
I'd still rather have a Mad Dog.
Oy.
Malt liquor over here for Mr. Orner.
It's a wine. They're both wines.
Technically, it's
Okay,
true.
fair enough. It's also International Corgi Day. A truly adorable little dog. I love corgis. There's in San Francisco annually there's like a corgi fest at Ocean Beach, and everybody who owns a corgi in the area brings it out, and you have like an army of like 800 corgis on the beach at once. Really wonderful.
Awesome. Is that where they have the race of the corgis? Is
I
that the
don't.
Giants? Do the Giants do
Oh,
that?
I think.
Who's the
no.
corgi races?
Yeah, there have been sports teams that do dog and corgi races. I don't know if it's the Giants. Maybe they've done that. I know the Sacramento Kings do baby races at halftime. That's always a good one.
Such a great thing. If I could bet on it.
It's National Hug Your Cat Day. Either one of you cat owners?
Yes, we have two.
What are their names?
Pikachu and Eevee, named after Pokemon.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Gotta
Love
catch
them.
'em all.
Two Siamese. And then I actually was just going to mention my wife and I are planning on getting a corgi at some point in the next year
nice.
or two.
Okay.
We are going to name it Ichiro. So
Nice.
That's just my Mariners fandom never ends.
Well, I am allergic to cats. I will not be hugging any cats. That would be bad news for me. And
Same.
oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
It's also National Christian T-Shirt Day. I don't really know what that is. What?
Do I need to have like a "What Would Jesus Do" T-shirt?
Maybe.
hanging out?
I'm sure that would qualify.
Did I mess up? I
Also
went with the
confusing
white?
me, National Shopping Cart Day. I don't know.
What?
I don't know, man.
My mom used to work for a Christian t-shirt company. They would make like plays on fun phrases that were dirty but make them clean.
Okay.
So I think that's kind of how they make their
Okay,
cash.
a punny Christian T-shirt.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, I did tell you that the Portland Trailblazers were in the real estate market, and that's because they are buying property in Tualatin next to their current training facility. So while I think the news people were hoping for might be related to a new stadium lot or something like that, it at least appears they're going to try to improve current facilities by, I'm guessing, expanding what they have out there in Tualatin right now.
Well, that's good. I know nothing about their training facility. Like, I don't know if it's nice. I don't know if
It
it's
is.
bad. I don't know, like, in comparison to the other NBA. Do professionals really care? Like, as long as you have the main stuff you need, do you really neat to have it super nice.
It doesn't say many details about the property itself. It just says that public records indicate the Blazers paid $4.6 million for the property in February.
I'm not surprised. It's a very nice facility out there. I feel like the last upgrade they did was like 5-7 years ago, but I feel like their practice facility is nicer than like their locker room at Moda. So they got to work on what they've got at the stadium before they start working on their workout facility.
It's also being indicated by someone from the Warsaw Sports Business Center at the U of O that this could be part and parcel with a WNBA training facility. So should Portland be able to put their hat in the ring for WNBA, you could have kind of everything centered around there with this extra property.
As a WNBA fan, I'm all for this.
Yeah.
Let's get a team down here.
But how do you feel about bullying between different races on the basketball court?
I
didn't
actually
want to go down.
I just want to shut up and dribble. And by shut up and dribble, I
mean that
just
the best
want to
possible
watch.
way.
I just mean I just want to watch and have no opinions.
Well, Fleet Week is coming, fellas. Any affinity for Fleet Week? Do you guys do anything for Fleet Week?
What is Fleet Week?
I can smell the STDs already.
Oh, nice. Fleet Week is, and I'll have to look this up. I probably should have been prepared with this before the break, but apparently Fleet Week is done by something like 20 different U.S. cities, but it is when naval ships that are out at sea come into port for a period of time, and the sailors are, able to gallivant across the city. So this year, Fleet Week in Portland runs from June 5th to June 10th, so that starts on Wednesday, and the Port of Portland will be receiving ships from 3 different agencies, the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Coast Guard, as well as the Canadian Royal Navy. So we'll be welcoming the Coast Guard's U.S. CGC John McCormick, arrives 2 p.m. on Wednesday. The USS Montgomery arrives 3 p.m. on Wednesday. The U.S. CGC Bluebell at 5:30 on Wednesday, and then Her Majesty's ship, or Her Majesty's Canadian ship Edmonton at 5:30, followed by Her Majesty's Canadian ship Yellowknife at 5:45. I'm telling you all of this because, additionally, it means there will be some bridge closures from time to time, so you'll want to be aware of that. I had those. Yeah, so it says that the ship arrivals at the times I just mentioned may impact bridge lifts for Broadway and Burnside. So around those times from about 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. if you're going through the area on Wednesday, be aware of that.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll run into some of these people on my Saturday night activities.
They also, you probably will.
You'll see them everywhere.
I just gotta be careful of the Edmonton. I hear those guys are kind of oily.
Ooh, I see what you did there. And additionally, some of these are offering ship tours. If you are interested in boarding the Royal Canadian Navy ships or the U.S. Navy ships, you can go check out the USS Montgomery or others like it. So you can get tickets. Oh, tickets are not required, it says. Tours are first come, first serve. You can do those June 6th through the 9th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So go get your naval affinity on.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be the activity we do as the pregame into Shane Gillis, but maybe we'll look at it from afar.
Oh, Shane, are you seeing Shane Gillis this week or this week?
Me and the boys, we're going out. I've been told by one.
Where's
Jason
he playing?
We're at Keller, so it's like half are going to the 7, half are going to the 9:30, I believe.
Double show, very nice.
Right? Yeah, I've been told it is the douchiest thing that I am doing.
Oh,
by one Jason Sukanik.
Well, I mean, it's certainly on brand with going to see Kreischer at the Gorge, and and so I mean, it's right in your wheelhouse. I'm not surprised. I actually haven't seen the Gillis stand-up that everyone's raving about yet.
You need to.
What I really want to check out is the new Netflix series that he's got going
Tires?
on. Have you watched it yet?
Yeah, you can watch it in an evening. It's 6 episodes. They're about 20 to 30 minutes each. You can knock it out. If you have an evening where you're not doing anything, there's no sports on until Thursday, you can knock it out. Really funny. Made me laugh the whole time. It's bro-y guy humor.
I was just going to ask, is the wifey going to want to watch it with me, or do I have to save this?
Depends on if... it's not... They're not going to go crazy. There's some things that you're not necessarily going to love, but it made me laugh. I've watched both of his stand-up specials. He's been circled. He's not quite my white whale of comedy shows,
but up there.
He's up there pretty high. We're excited. A lot of my they're frat bros. They've included me in we'll get to go and watch.
Honorary frat bro, Will Ortner.
Yeah, that's
Sorry,
right.
I'm a frat bro too.
I am not. Thank
but-
goodness.
Well, but you're a music bro, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm a music nerd. I don't even think you can call us bros. We're nerds. Yeah, like I guess I'll proudly wear that one. That one.
Coming up next, this show has reported in the past on malicious fecal distribution. We have fecal distribution on the coast, but was it malicious? And Oregonians among those caught in a FBI scam scheme. That's next on In the News in 1080 The Fan.
This is the Fan's Window into Sports, a view into today's top stories. Brought to you by Window Nation, online at windownation.com.
People are pulling up to games. We got celebrities coming to games, sold out arenas, like just because of one single game. And just looking at that, like I'll take that role. I'll take the bad guy role, and I'll continue to take that on and be that for my teammates. And if I want to be that, and I know I'll go down in history, I'll look back in 20 years and be like, yeah, the reason why we watching women's basketball is not just because of one person. It's because of me too, and I want y'all to realize that.
So much to unpack. I don't know that I can efficiently do that in the next 30 seconds, but that was Angel Reese of the Chicago Sky saying people are coming to watch her just as much as they are Caitlin Clark. The attendance numbers would not indicate that, although I do believe that Angel Reese is part of a new generation of WNBA that's super compelling. That is your Fans Window into Sports, brought to you by Window Nation. This month, receive 50% off all windows, no interest for 5 years, plus a bonus 10% off through June 30th. Call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com.
What's your opinion?
It's thick, it's meaty.
The AAA Heating and Cooling poll question gives you a chance to vote on the hottest topics of the day, according to Isaac and Sue.
They were more excited than I was because I did it.
Brought to you by AAA Heating and Cooling, a family business helping families for over 50 years. Visit AAAIAQ.com. The AAA Heating and Cooling poll question. Vote now on Twitter at 1080 The Fan.
Hey, it's Souk. Vulcan Design and Construction helped me turn my backyard into a true outdoor living space. Now the area I used a few times a year is my favorite place to hang out year-round. To check out their award-winning designs for yourself or to book your free consultation, go to vulcandc.com. Big Souk here for the Big Ford store, Vancouver Ford. Locally owned and #1 in customer service, forget this, the 7th straight year. Their certified staff is ready to get you in the ride you're looking for. Vancouver Ford isn't just my hometown dealer, it's the dealer I send my family and friends to because I know they're going to be well taken.
In the news for June 4th. A couple more stories for us to get to. The first one, look out on the Oregon coast. We have fecal distribution.
Again?
Yeah, so this is unrelated to the whale. This is unrelated to malicious fecal distribution that this program has reported on. This is in Lincoln County, Oregon, where today the public health advisory said that there are unsafe levels of fecal bacteria in the ocean waters at Dee River Beach in Lincoln County. Says that the unsafe levels can cause diarrhea, stomach cramps, skin rashes, upper respiratory infections, and other illnesses. Children and adults or those immunocompromised should use extra caution as they are more vulnerable to illnesses from waterborne bacteria. So basically, don't go in the ocean, creeks, or even nearby pools or puddles in the area until further notice. You should be waiting at least 48 hours. And you might be wondering, how does this happen, Ryan? Well, let me tell you, Will. Yesterday, we reported on record levels of precipitation for this point in the year over the weekend. This can happen because of stormwater runoff, sewer overflows, failing septic systems, or animal waste from livestock, pets, and wildlife. It seems that because of all the recent rains, we probably just got some sewer overflow, and that made its way into the ocean area, and that's no bueno.
Gross. Why does this keep happening? Can we not put like a net or like something? Can we fix this poop problem? Because it happens all the time.
It feels like we should be able to do something, but
like put a filter on the cap. Nothing.
Is
stupid.
I don't know what that something is.
Is this an IPA problem? Like we have too much coffee here in the Northwest? Like what's going on? Like do we need to chill out?
That's why I switched to light beers, Will. Miller High Lifes instead of IPAs.
Never move.
Well, Suk would say he can't be part of the problem because he's a Rainier man. So let's see.
Yeah, Rainier's never made me poop.
No, never.
Ever.
But, yeah, look out for the beach for the next 48 hours, at least in Lincoln County. I also wanted to tell you the details of a pretty elaborate scam that has caught some Oregon residents. Now, try to follow me on this one. This scam starts when people click on a pop-up screen that freezes their computer. So it's essentially a cyber attack on individuals. When they click on this screen, it directs them to call a number that takes them to what they believe is an FBI office. Someone posing as an FBI agent named John Stryker on the other end of the phone tells the callers that they need to pay the FBI in cash or gold bars, saying that they were responsible for a cyber attack to the FBI's Sacramento office, and they need to make payment to avoid facing arrest or having their assets frozen.
Okay, Stryker.
So here's the thing. I mean, clearly we're preying on those who are probably either old or confused about what's going on, because if you weren't part of a cyber attack on the FBI offices of Sacramento, you would have nothing to pay. And yet, people believe they're going to be in real trouble if they don't pony up some money here. So one of the ways or places this affected Oregon residents is that last week, Salem police arrested a 39-year-old man, Ramaraj Ganasan of California, who was accused of driving up to a man's house in Salem to pick up a package of thousands of dollars.
Oh my.
They basically told him, you're going to owe either cash or gold bars, and someone will come by to pick it up. And he just gave over thousands of dollars of cash to this dude who showed up to his house. Now, luckily, they caught the guy, but they said the victim, had already turned over $90,000 to the alleged FBI.
Oh my goodness.
And this isn't
90?
This isn't just happening in Oregon, it's happening in other states as well, including California. So this scheme has really nailed a couple Oregonians, and but they're trying to find, I guess, this man who picked it up isn't the same Agent Stryker. It seems like it's a part of a bigger operation.
You do feel like there is one major flaw in this. Like, most of the ways that people have gone about this, especially recently, has been like, hey, send me Bitcoin or, crypto, go through PayPal because it can't be traced. You do have to go and pick it up. And if they have a Ring camera, which almost everyone does now, I feel like it wouldn't be that hard to be like, yep, that's the dude from the Ring camera that picked up my money. But who has $90K like just rolling around?
Yeah,
it
seemed like this person had to liquidate assets to be able to do that.
Oh.
Additionally, though, it says the way they caught this guy is that the person who had given over cash to the guy who showed up to his house, they contacted the FBI in Salem to say, like, yo, what is going on?
Why do I owe you
and
money?
And the FBI in Salem's like, yeah, this ain't us. Like, no one's doing that here. So they helped set up a sting. They basically...
Oh, yeah, I love this.
They made a situation where they said, hey, we're going to... I'll have a meet. I'll have cash for you on Tuesday. No, actually, you're going to have to come on Thursday and pick it up here at this location. And when the person showed up for the package, they busted him.
They're like, catch this, striker.
So decoy package nails the criminal, but alas, still some victims on the Oregon side.
The Chris Hansen investigative reporter end to this, where they involve the police or the feds and actually catch. Oh man, that is a satisfying end. But gosh, they aren't getting their $90K back, are they?
I don't know how that works. I mean, if this person that they caught is still in possession of the assets, I would imagine you could, but I would have to imagine it's part of a larger scheme and that money is long gone somewhere else. Hard to know. But that is your In the News for Tuesday, June 4th. We will continue on next with our Hot 5 at 5, plus next hour, a couple other things we have to get into. Can we make it illegal to duck your rivals in football? That's something that they're talking about in the courts in one state. And also, when is NIL going to stop, or how low does it go? That's all coming up on 1080 The Fan.
Hey, it's
Welcome in, hour number 3 of the SOB edition of Primetime. Schultze, Ortner, and Buckley here with you. Rop still out in Kansas. Souk still up in Lake Tahoe. Souk's going to be back on Thursday, though. He'll be rejoining us. Coming up in the club tonight, what happens when you find a bag of cash at your door? That story coming by way of Schultze, and it's a good one. Also, a study shows why hot flight attendants matter. We will get to that as well.
Yes, they do.
And coming up this hour, 2 things where sports and the legal world intersect. Generally, I think we have too much of the sports in the courts, but there's one thing I'm kind of interested in, and that is making it illegal to duck one of your in-state rivals. So we'll get to that coming up. But first, before we can get to any of that, it's time for our Hot 5 at 5.
Hot topics, hot opinions,
Oh, Charlie, I'm hot today.
and hot air. It's time for the Hot 5 at 5.
That's hot.
The Hot 5 at 5 on Primetime with Isaac and Sue.
No, I mean it. That's very hot.
The Hot 5 at 5 with Isaac and Sue. Brought to you on The Fan by Victorico's Mexican Food, the most popular burrito spot in Oregon. Online at victoricos.com. Number 5.
Number 5, we have our super regional schedules for both the Ducks and the Beavers. Oregon going to play Game 1 at Texas A&M Saturday. That'll be 11 a.m. our time on ESPN2. Game 2 will be 4:30 our time the following day, Sunday, also on ESPN2. The Beavs, meanwhile, are going to be on ESPNU. Their first game comes your way 3 o'clock on Saturday. Their second one at 6 o'clock on Sunday. So I'm excited. Couple very tough SEC foes, though. I think the Ducks and Beavs have drawn the 2 and 3 seeds overall in the tournament.
I hate that they keep finding a way to put Oregon State on ESPN Plus, or really hard to find. Like, yeah, it's nice that it's a little bit easier. You said, what, ESPNU?
ESPNU for them, yeah.
They should be on ESPN. It's the 2-seed Kentucky against the 15-seed Oregon State. It's your closest matchup, to my understanding, that you have in the Super Regionals. Get them on ESPN. You have the best player, the number 1 overall draft pick in Bonanza, or whatever his name is.
Bazana, yeah.
Bazana.
Bonanza's a good name for him, though. I like that.
He's bananas. He's great.
Well, keeping it in baseball, we have a couple suspensions to discuss. You and I talked about him earlier in the big game of who's the dumber gambler, the guy who couldn't win a bet on his own team or the guy who cost himself an entire season betting less than $100 on his own team. Either way, you have Tucupita Marcano, the shortstop for the Padres. He's banned for life for his gambling, and then Michael Kelly, the pitcher from the A's, he's only banned for a year for his transgressions. But another piece of information on the gambling front today is that Ipe Mizuhara, the interpreter for Ohtani, has pled guilty. He's facing 33 years in prison if they give him the full sentence. And additionally, I thought it was interesting today that the Dodgers put out a statement basically saying, well, case closed on Ohtani and Mizuhara now, so that's it. We're not going to talk about Ohtani anymore. And it's like, it's not really up to you. I mean, I know that they'd like to wash their hands of it, but it's not quite how it works. I don't necessarily think Ohtani's involved, but I think it's kind of odd that the Dodgers are like, see, this thing's done. It's done over here.
I'm right there with you. It seems like he got away very clean. At the very least, he had some very negligent practices when it came to how he handled his money, and it got swept under the rug very quick.
Yeah, it appears he was pretty naive about some things, but at the same time, wasn't put under a very tight microscope either. So see if anything comes of that later. But number 3, some NFL goings-on. The 49ers and Christian McCaffrey agreed to terms on a 2-year extension. I think it makes way too much sense for both times. It's not a long-term deal.
Right.
It is a lot of money, but you know with the production that you're getting out of him, it's going to be worth it. Additionally, Brandon Ayuk is holding out. So is CeeDee Lamb in Dallas. Both the receivers looking for an extended payday. And former Pac-12 receiver N'Keal Harry, formerly of the Patriots, the Vikings turning him into a tight end, apparently. And I guess Kevin O'Connell says he's fired up about that.
Well, he better be fired up, because if he didn't move to tight end, he wasn't going to be playing wide receiver for very long.
That guy was awesome in college, and he did nothing as a wide receiver.
No, I mean, he was built on
in the pros, that is.
Right, but he was built on his size and his strength, and the big thing that I feel like when I watch him is how high is his football IQ? I felt like he made a lot of mistakes that a player at that level with that athleticism shouldn't make if they know what they're doing. That'd be my question with him.
And then over in the NBA, we still have to wait until, I guess, 2 more sleeps until the NBA Finals. That comes our way on Thursday, Game 1 between the Celtics and the Mavericks. The news today is that we are fully expecting Kristaps Porzingis to be available. What's not totally clear is whether he's 100% or not. He was somewhat cagey in his media session, people asking him if he feels any pain when he runs, if he can give it his all. Really wouldn't answer those questions, but there's no doubt he's going to be back.
Yeah, all you really need out of him is 15 to 20 a night. I mean, even if it's just to give Horford a break, I know he's older, but what he was able to do, I mean, he had a game where he had 7 3-pointers against the Pacers. You can't rely on Horford to do that, but if you can get 10 to 12 points out of KP and you can get 8 boards out of him, that's all you really need. He's a depth piece there. And
he also helps stretch the offense in good ways that just aids other guys without even having to do too much,
If
I think.
he has one good game in this series where he puts up a 20 and 10 performance, I think you're happy with what you got.
And then number 1, a little light on NBA news with the playoffs kind of on hiatus for a couple more days, but it sounds like they are circling the wagons down in Los Angeles, and according to Shams, J.J. Redick is the top candidate for that Lakers job down there. We've heard this bubbling for a while now. Your thoughts?
Feels like the worst kept secret in the NBA. It feels like it's been his job. It's almost like they have to wait until the finals are done to give it to JJ. It's a bold move. I mean, you get to now say that you're an NBA head coach. JJ Redick is clearly very smart and very knowledgeable about the game. Still seems like a really big risk with a team that has 2 aging superstars and I don't feel like are in a championship window.
It will make for a lot of interesting storylines because he's still young. He's not that far removed from playing. He played plenty of years around and with LeBron James. And so you wonder how much he needs under his belt experience-wise to be able to be effective with some of those vets. But then again, it sounds like he's incredibly well-respected. So I don't know what to think.
No, none. He needs no experience. All these hot takes on his podcast have literally gotten him this job, at least so it seems. I don't really feel like I'm out of the realm in saying that. And it's interesting to hear around NBA circles the defense of this no-experience head coaching hire that's ready to lead a talented team to the championship. Like, what?
Well, Steve Kerr came off the scrap, well, not off the scrap heap, but he came right from the TV booth into, but then again, and maybe JJ's doing something similar. There's all these stories about how everywhere Steve Kerr went, he started keeping a book of plays that he liked from different teams, and then he had them all ready to present to the Warriors when he interviewed. I would imagine JJ's buttoned up in that very same way, but it seems like it would be trailblazing for a podcaster like him to be a NBA head coach.
I think he's very, very smart, and I think he can be successful as a coach. I just worry when Kerr took over the Warriors, they were ascending.
Yes.
Steph Curry wasn't at his peak. Draymond wasn't at his peak. Clay wasn't at his peak. And you had older guys like West, Iguodala, Lee, all these fantastic players that could help bolster this team to a title. When you look at this LA team, the biggest issue that they have is they don't have shooters. This is the healthiest AD has been in years. And LeBron is going to be 40 next year. Just because he's the greatest or second greatest player of all time doesn't mean that he's going to be the best player in the NBA at 40, right? So it doesn't feel like it's a team on the ascent. It feels like a weird move by JJ, to me.
And since we're on the topic of the Lakers, we were talking a little bit about this before the show, but a clip came out of LeBron earlier today talking about how he misses having Kyrie as his running mate. And he also said that he thinks that Kyrie is the most gifted player that the NBA has ever seen, which that's ridiculously high praise from one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And you and I kind of conceded it feels like the inside circles in the league, there's a deep belief about that talent in Kyrie. I don't totally get it. I mean, I listen, I watched him rip my heart out as a member of the Cavaliers when he hit the 3-pointer in Game 7. I know that he can be a really good player. I know about his ability to finish. He's all-star caliber, but to say that he's maybe the most talented the league or most gifted the league has ever seen, where does that sit with you?
I think it all comes from his ability to finish as a small guard against bigger opponents, and then his handles. I mean, the one that you always see on Twitter is where he splits a double team in the Team USA practice and he dribbles the ball off his knee to make another guy miss. He gets all the way to the rack and he makes a nice pass and they get a layup during that scrimmage. what I think with Kyrie is Kyrie got in Kyrie's way. You know, like
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
his play on the court got overshadowed once he left Cleveland because he couldn't shut up, or he kept talking about things that maybe he didn't have the most knowledge about, like the earth not being round. So when you look at a lot of the things that people love about Kyrie and why Kyrie's getting that love again, is it's because Kyrie's being what he was in Cleveland.
He's leaving all that other stuff on the side where it was in the first place.
He's not talking about if the earth is flat. He's not talking about his stupid book or movie recommendations.
Well, he's not complaining about management and teammates and who he's surrounded by. I mean, I remember when he went to Brooklyn and it was going to be him and Harden, KD, and you're like, yeah. I mean, everyone could see a mile away that wasn't going to work. But to be fair, when he got to Dallas, I'm like, that's not going to work.
No.
And here we are. It's absolutely working.
Well, and it's working because the head coach is one of the few people in the world that can tell him to just play basketball, because Jason Kidd is his idol. He grew up in New Jersey. He loved Jason Kidd when he was on the Nets. He went to Jason Kidd's Hall of Fame induction speech without telling Jason Kidd. Normally when players go to that, they tell the person, hey, I want to be there. You pay for me. He paid out of his own money to go watch Jason Kidd. That's how much he respects Jason Kidd. And now he's able to take more of that elder statesman role. And then there's also a thing about just growing up. Like, the amount of dumb things that I said at 18 that I now look at 26, like, wow, that was really dumb. And I'll do the exact same thing in 4 years when I'm 30 and be like, wow, I can't believe I said that at 26. You grow. It's why when you look at your Facebook memories, you go, ooh, that was really cringy. That's, I'm sure, what he's doing to an extent. Now he knows, hey, man, I need to do these things to be more successful. He's a little more grounded. And you've seen a return to what he was in Cleveland. And he's a damn good player when he is focused on basketball and not focused on other things, and you're finally seeing him go back to that.
The Hot 5 at 5 is brought to you every day by Victorico's Mexican Food, home of the best burrito in Oregon. You can, of course, visit them at victoricos.com. Well, the NIL era has certainly rocked college football. What if I told you it's coming to high school football? That's next on 1080 The Fan.
The home of Dirt and Spray.
Primetime, and if you thought NIL was messy in college football, buckle up because we are going to uncharted territory now. Saw this earlier today, and that is that let me make sure I get the language of this right. The Florida High School Athletic Association has approved NIL for high school players, meaning that we will be having high school players who earn more money than their high school coaches in this upcoming season. In fact, it's already at work. I've learned from On3 that top 100 recruit wide receivers Jamie French and Vernell Brown have already inked NIL deals with apparel company American Eagle. So they're already getting paid by those guys.
Bringing it back.
And this goes to me almost all the way back to like where we were with like Maurice Clarett way back in the day when he first started challenging the courts. His whole thing was you can't tell me I can't go to the pros yet because you can't deny me the right to earn money if someone's willing to pay me that. That was his thing when he was leaving Ohio State after his freshman year trying to go to the pros. And I think that high school kids earning NIL is going to be a disaster, especially for big programs. And you already have weird recruiting races and weird charter schools and private schools and all that going on. And now you're going to have kids before they've graduated high school chasing the bag. It feels really messy. At the same time, if there are companies who are willing to pay kids because they're good at football when they're in high school, who am I to tell those kids that they can't get paid off of that? So it's complicated for me, but I do think it sounds like an absolute mess.
What I think is if someone is willing to pay you an amount of money to hawk their program, right? Like, hey, we want you to be our main guy. Like, we are American Eagle and we're going to build on the next great Florida high school quarterback. Whatever they're willing to pay you, take that money. Yeah. That is yours.
I don't
100%.
blame them. I don't blame them for that one bit.
If I'm American Eagle and I'm going to my boss, I don't know how I sit there and I say, hey, you see that 16-year-old over there? We are going to give him $50K to hawk our brand or to be a model for us or to do. It just doesn't make sense to me from the standpoint of the business. Like, you're American Eagle. You can get that same player more than likely later on. It might be a little bit more money, but if you wait until he's 20 or 19 and he's in college and he's actually performing at a high level, you're going to get a good return on that investment. Maybe I'm too old at the grand old age of 26, but there is not a single big name high school recruit right now that you could throw up on a picture and me go, yep, I know exactly who that is. Oh, he's wearing American Eagle. Can't wait to go buy me some. It's not happening. So it's not happening till you get more of a reach.
And I think that to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense from that standpoint. I really don't understand what American Eagle has to gain by putting these two random football players in their ads. I don't think they're suddenly selling more jeans or polos because of it.
No.
What would make more sense to me is if you found out that local high school star can promote his local car dealership. That at least it's like, okay, the quarterback kid down the street doing the local, like, that makes more sense to me than high school wide receiver meets national brand of a pair like that.
Right.
That one's a little bit lost on me. But I think what's going to be interesting to see as well is how much of a demand is there for it? Because right now you already have kids in college thinking I should get paid. Well, and some of them, they're not bringing that much to the table and they don't bring that much value for companies to get behind. And so there's going to be even fewer percentages of kids in high school who are like that. How many companies really want to back a high school kid or want a high school kid's image and likeness to support their business? I don't feel like that's a high demand, yet it also feels like this is going to be a problem.
Well, we've also seen it. We've seen them try to do this before, right? Like, we've seen QB1 Under the Lights. How long did that show go for? We've seen, the Last Chance U version. How well did that work for any of those guys? Did anyone come out of Last Chance U, aside from the one counselor, looking better than what they did beforehand?
No.
So there's another point of it where if I'm the high school kid, why do I even, I get it. They're throwing a lot of money at you. Maybe your family needs the money. But there also comes a point where it's like, why do you want to be in stardom at 16?
Yeah.
You're going to do something stupid. Even if you are the smartest, most polished 16-year-old out there, you will do something stupid.
And now it feels weird because it feels like, at least in the state of Florida, you're going to be having these high school auctions for the best kids to create the best programs. And like maybe that's what we're doing in college football already to a degree. But then the other part, Darren Heitner tweets, the worst part of this Florida high school NIL bylaw is that no agreement can extend beyond the athlete's high school athletic eligibility or graduation date. So if someone like Gatorade wants to sign a player of the year to a long-term contract, it would be a violation that could result in sanctions. I would think half of what made sense about this is maybe you get in early with an athlete who's destined for stardom. Maybe Nike says, hey, I think that soccer player right there is going to be something. We'd like to sign him to a deal now. No, it has to terminate at the end of their high school and then I guess restart. So it doesn't even feel like they're laying groundwork for the future.
I do feel like that is the only benefit, and it's only benefiting like the 4- and 5-star recruits that we're going to see. I mean, to me, it kind of sounds like the best are going to get more money at an earlier age, at least in the state of Florida. And that is just dangerous. It's dangerous for two reasons to me, because you're still trying to build up young men and women, right? To be good people.
Yeah.
I don't want to dive too far into that, but having that much money at 16, it changes you. And you're already dealing with a lot of egos on a football team, for instance. And if you're giving the top guys hundreds of thousands of dollars or 50 grand walking around that school already with their big egos, this is a monster that you are going to see get huge, and something that I don't think we're going to be able to control. And two, I am really, really scared at what they're going to be doing off the field to try and get that money. We could see more injuries. We could see more younger kids doing things that we don't want them doing, like steroids, like other enhancement drugs. There's just so much of a potential here. We're putting a lot of pressure on young kids, and I see a huge potential for it to go very haywire.
And maybe it's not fair to say, well, they're going to get paid later anyways, and because it's not
Right,
fair to who
you
they are
never
now,
know
and if you don't know who's going to get hurt or whatever.
Right,
But at the same time, a lot of these guys who may be expecting those riches now, like those riches are waiting for them on the other side in college if they just keep their heads down and keep playing ball. So I don't want to tell them don't go get that bag, because if you tell an individual, hey, if you perform well enough, that money's out there for you, that's a good thing, that's a good incentive. But overall, the way it affects the entire landscape of high school sports is interesting.
Right. The thing for me is like kids are dumb, but kids are going to do whatever they think they need to do based on their own morals, on how they want to reach whatever they want to reach. Like if a kid thought that, hey, I can go be the next Nico Laliva, right, and get $8 million coming out of high school, but I just need to, work out this hard or quit these other sports or even do something that they're not supposed to, like take a steroid, right? This isn't going to change whether they do that or not.
You're saying they were going to do that anyways because of what laid ahead.
You were already going to do that. And so for me, it's always going to come back to the company. It doesn't make sense to me why, as a national brand, you would invest. And I'm sure, for American Eagle, whatever figure they're giving to these kids, it's a fraction of what their true marketing value is. But it's still a decent chunk of change to kind of throw at no names and nobodies. And are these kids going to be popular enough where other high school kids go, that's the kid from Matter Day, or that's the kid from IMG, and so I'm going to go in and put money. Like, I'm 10 years removed from being one of those. Well, I'm 8 years removed from being one of those high school kids, but I'm 10 years removed from being a sophomore in high school. In my class, I knew one guy, and Evan Weaver wasn't going to make the difference between whether I wore American Eagle jeans or Aeropostale or Hollister or, whatever you want to throw out there. The only thing and the only reason to me that this would make sense from a company standpoint is if you are the local mom and pop shop and you've got the next 5-star kid and you're like, hey, he gets to eat on Tuesdays for free. And so maybe you get more high school kids coming in. Otherwise, as a national brand,
what are we doing?
What are you doing?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think it may, and I mean, there are times for college NIL, I'm like, really? That moves the needle for you guys?
Right.
Like, I don't necessarily even understand why there's so much incentive for the companies to get behind some of this. I think in some cases it's just like, well, I just really love this school that I'm an alumnus of and I want to throw money at it. So like, here, give this to some of the kids. I mean, I honestly don't know in some cases why some of these corporations are forking over money when it feels like it's not coming back to them in that way. But this is a whole new can of worms. And I don't know if Florida's going to be the last state to do it. I don't know if we're going to see, money-hungry parents flocking in droves to the state of Florida to try and get their kid paid. But we're
Baby Gronk's moving to Florida. Is that what you're telling me?
One more step towards a new frontier where everyone's getting paid for being good at sports. So, one other piece of legal action that had to go through the courts in Florida that I might actually be for. Making it illegal to duck your rival. I will explain what the state of North Carolina has put through the House committee, a bill that could become a law when it comes to college football rivalry. That's a real thing. It's coming up next on 1080 The Fan.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, just 2 days until the start of the NBA Finals between the Mavericks and Celtics in Boston. The Athletics' John Sharania reporting today that center Kristaps Porzingis will be available. Still dealing with a strained calf, though. That injury has been plaguing him through most of the playoffs. The Celtics a 6.5-point favorite for Game 1. Big news out of Major League Baseball today. They have banned Padres shortstop Tuca Pizzamarcano for life for betting on hundreds of baseball games, including Pirates games while he played for them last season. The league also suspending Oakland A's pitcher Michael Kelly for 1 year. He bet on baseball while he was a member of the Astros minor league system back in 2021. Speaking of the Oakland Athletics, they're hosting the Seattle Mariners tonight. George Kirby and Mitch Spence on the bump. First pitch set for 6:40 p.m. on Root Sports. The Mariners officially adding outfielder Victor Robles to their roster today. They had to outright Luis Arias to AAA to make room on the 40-man. And in the NFL, the San Francisco 49ers signing running back Christian McCaffrey to a 2-year, $19 million extension that also guarantees him $24 million along with his current deal. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schulte at the 1080 The Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
The afternoon round of the 10th Annual Fan Golf Classic, presented by Autotown GMC, is sold out. And the morning round is filling up fast. Sign up now to play with 1080 The Fan. It's time for Who's Leading the Charge. A look under the hood at the coaches, players, and teams getting it done. Brought to you by Battery Exchange.
High in the air, deep center field, Pavin Smith. Goodbye! Boy, just a meatball, 98, middle of the plate. Pavin leans on that ball.
Well, I usually like meatballs, but not when my baseball team is serving them up to the opponent. That is Pavin Smith of the Diamondbacks taking that meatball from the Giants' yard. The Diamondbacks beat the Giants 4-2 last night, and the Giants, at least their 5th straight loss. It might be more than that. I can't even count that high. Who's leading the charge, though, is the Arizona Diamondbacks and Pavin Smith, brought to you by Battery Exchange. Power up your spring at Battery Exchange. Mention code BXT10 at checkout for 10% off your entire purchase this month online at batteryexchangewithanx.com.
Dusty here for Victory.
Welcome back to Primetime. Coming up in the club at the top of the hour, what would you do if a bag of cash showed up at your front door, and why hot flight attendants matter? Probably get into some other musings as well, but for now, we're back to sports in the legal realm, and usually I hate this sort of stuff, but today an interesting little tidbit crossed my X timeline, and that would be from Andrew Carter, who writes for the Charlotte News Observer. He says that a bill that would require University of North Carolina and NC State University to play Appalachian State, East Carolina, and Charlotte more often in football and basketball passed through a House committee today in about 30 seconds. The bill would also put into law that UNC and NC State play each other every year. So what basically they are proposing here is that local teams have to play each other. And there is I already saw some people commenting, boy, if they had thought about this a little bit earlier then realignment started happening and you said, oh, well, I actually can't change conferences because I got to play these teams that are in my state. That might have had some sort of an impact, but he also took a quote from Representative Jake Johnson, who said, this bill was the product of some schools refusing to play against their in-state competition. I believe refusing to participate in those games would be harmful not only to the fan bases here at home, but the economic impact that greatly benefit the communities around these institutions. I hope this bill is the beginning of a dialogue that will result in all universities doing what is right for their university and the state as a whole. So this is, I think, what is being axed out of college sports, especially college football, with all the realignment, is all the local and regional ties. I mean, we're already seeing it with, granted, Oregon and Oregon State are still going to play, but Oregon and Washington State, we don't know when they're going to play again for years and years. Obviously, two different states we're talking about, Oregon and Washington, but at least here they're like, listen, we've got enough schools here. If we can force these guys to play each other frequently enough, it's better for everyone here locally, and I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, for me, it's like, what do people care the most about in Oregon when it comes to college sports? They care about Oregon versus Oregon State. They care about the game formerly known as the Civil War. In Washington, you care about the Apple Cup. It is a big deal. And I think that's important for the sport moving forward is, hey, these rivalry games still need to be played. Yeah, realignment is happening and has happened, and now they're in different conferences. But I still feel like the most exciting week or weekend in sports, or at least college sports, is that rivalry weekend. There's something special about going to Seattle or Pullman for the Apple Cup, or going to Corvallis or Eugene for the game formerly known as the Civil War. And I don't really understand why that's a pressing issue that we have with our legislation. But if they're going to get behind that and they're going to start forcing these teams to play each other, I'm all for this. It keeps the rivalries alive, and it gives each school something to care about moving forward.
Brian Murphy, who was also covering the story, said that NC State had a series scheduled with App State, ECU, and Charlotte between 2025 and 2031, but at least one of those games got moved and canceled, and they were fearful that others would happen, and that played a big role in this coming to life. So I think that what they're also trying to protect the little guy to a degree. I think they're trying to make sure, and it's not an every year thing. They want UNC and NC State, who are the public institutions. They can't force Wake Forest or Duke to do anything.
Right.
But they want the public institutions to play each other every year. They think that's good for the local interest. And additionally, they want a rotation where the big institutions have to play the smaller institutions from time to time as well, much like in Oregon playing a Portland State. And I don't think that's the worst thing either. Obviously, those end up often being a bloodbath, but we've seen what Appalachian State or East Carolina can do in certain situations. And I like that they are still maybe getting a seat at the table to slay some of the giants.
Yeah, it also feels a little bit like a rising tide lifts all boats. Like if things are going well for Oregon, when they play Portland State, they pay a portion of, Portland State's travel budget. Like that's why that FCS game happens. It happens so that the FBS team can get a preseason game. But for the FCS team, it's expensive to travel. A lot of those teams are having to figure out how to get their own charter flights. That's how they're able to do it. So, with all the realignment that's happening, there's still going to be things that make college sports college sports. It might not be the college sports that you remember from when you were growing up or that I remember from when I was growing up, but I do like, you're still building a community around these schools, and it's still important that these schools play each other. It's important that WSU plays Eastern Washington. It's important that UW plays Eastern Washington because it grows that familiar bond and it helps lift up the smaller schools in your state. I don't know if you're going to fully be able to force teams to do this because a team like USC can say, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to play that team or play that game because we're private and we don't have to.
What's also interesting is that in both of these people reported how fast this got approved by the House committee, that this went right through, that there was zero discussion over anyone opposing it whatsoever. It seems like collectively lawmakers are like, yes, this is the rising tide lifts all boats. This is good for all of us if this happens. And surprisingly, an issue that both sides of the aisle can get on very easily, it seems.
Yeah, it's like we finally found a way to bring Republicans and Democrats together.
That's it. All we had to do
Football
was just
voting.
force some more rivalry games. That is how we fix America.
Hey, you know what? I mean, Gillis has a great bit on that. I'm just saying.
What sports bringing people together?
Yeah.
I mean, that does seem to be when all of our politicians agree, like the steroid hearings in the 2000s, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Anything. I believe that there were calls from Congress to investigate, like, Deflategate, and I'm pretty sure both sides of the aisle was for that. So it's very weird, but yeah, sports brings those angry politicians together.
Sports bring everyone together. I mean, it's why we love it. But hey, you know what else? And I just want to touch on this. I was at the WSU game when PSU went on the road and knocked off the Cougars. So, yeah.
Mike Leach's one of his first games of the year, right?
Yeah, super sick recruiting trip there that I had. Really excited about my game visit to Washington State. Really went well. First time on TV, too. You can see it right when the guy makes the interception. I am not happy. But to come out here and say, like, as a big boy, like, we don't have to play those schools, we're going to win every time. You don't win every time. You win most of the time, 99% of the time. But sometimes that's a big game. And especially now with the conference realignment, the Apple Cup should happen every year.
Yeah.
The game formerly known as the Civil War should happen every year. And you know what? UW and Oregon, you left your brothers behind. So don't come and cry to me that your brother is going to get more up for that game than you might necessarily. You better be getting loaded for bear. And I love it. Have this game every single year.
Yeah, for me, the one place where I don't necessarily, unfortunately, see as much return value is on the big beats the or the big taking on the little. I don't want to assume that the big beats the little because, like you said, there are times where David slays Goliath, but a lot of the time it ends up being a 50-point route that is just some extra money in that school's pocket, which often that school absolutely needs to get going. And with conference realignment, media rights changing, it might be the kind of thing that keeps those schools afloat. And if that's the case, then I'm here for that. But then I'm also like, can we just find a way to subsidize those programs then so we don't have to, quote unquote, waste a game that maybe isn't as competitive? But that's not necessarily here nor there when it comes to what they're trying to do here in North Carolina, because it would it's two-pronged. It basically is supposed to serve both the major institutions and the minor institutions as well. A couple baseball notes that I wanted to get to coming up on the other side of the break. There is a college coach who is leaving his team after the regional and before the super regional. I will tell you why. And for the sake of nostalgia, a team that's knocked out wants one more ride. I'll tell you about it next on 1080 The Fan.
It's time for a Ducks Report, the inside story on Oregon athletics, brought to you by Mods PDX. The future of building is here.
Well, the Oregon Ducks headed to College Station this weekend, at least the baseball team is, to take on Texas A&M in the Super Regional. Texas A&M, the number 3 overall seed, so it'll be a tough task. The Ducks Game 1 will come your way at 11 a.m. our time on Saturday on ESPN2. Game 2 will also be on ESPN2. That's 4:30 on Sunday. If they need a Game 3, that'll be on Monday. But hopefully, the Ducks can take care of it in 2 games. This Mods PDX Ducks Report brought to you by Mods PDX. The future of building is here.
It's back, and it's sure to sell out fast. The afternoon round of the 10th Annual Fan Golf Classic at Langdon Farms on Thursday, July 11th. Presented by Autotown GMC and brought to you by Michelob Ultra.
Welcome back to Primetime. I'm going to get you to the club about 12 minutes from now, where we will discuss what to do when you find a bag of cash at your front door and why hot flight attendants still matter. That's coming up in the club. But first, I have a pair of baseball stories for you. Where do you want to start, Will? I'll give you a dealer's choice. We can start with flying commercial or riding the bus. What sounds more appealing?
Flying's always fun. The bus can get smelly.
Okay, well, the West Virginia Mountaineers were only the second 3 seed to get out of their regional, them and the Oregon Ducks, as they knocked out Arizona and Grand Canyon University, as well as Dallas Baptist from the Tucson regional. I don't know how travel was arranged for this squad going from Morgantown to Tucson, but according to the head coach, they basically didn't have enough seats on their chartered flight back to campus. And so their coach, and I'll pull up his name because I want to give him credit for it, but their coach said that the players are the ones who deserve the flight. So he sent the whole team back to Morgantown from Tucson on the direct chartered flight with 30 seats, and he had the coaching staff and university administration personnel all fly commercial on the way back.
Nice.
He tweeted today, like, waving from like a Panda Express at his 3-hour layover in Atlanta while he was flying commercial back, and his team was already back at home. So he's like, look, these guys went across the country. They knocked out a 1 seed. They're going to the Supers. They deserve this flight, not me. So, yeah, all the coaches, you guys are riding with me commercial. The boys get to take the private jet back.
You know what, though? I see through the lies.
Which is?
You want the players on the charter because they can only get into so much trouble on the charter.
I see what you're saying.
If you have them back in the hotel and they have to figure it out themselves how they try and get back, you're going to lose somebody. You're going to have somebody try and bring a guest with them. They're going to go and maybe take some liberties with the school card, if you will, at the Hudson News or whatever else is going on over there. He is out here trying to play like, I'm such a good coach. I sent my kids back on the charter, and I took the harder route.
Also, yeah, no excuse for travel delays and, like, we're late to practice or
Right.
we're behind, we're tired from our long travel days.
No. I see through the lies. This is the smart move by him. Get the idiots on the plane.
He earned some public goodwill and also gets to keep his players in line. Okay.
This is a smart, genius move by him. Make sure that they get back. But shame on the NCAA. The NCAA is who pays for that charter.
So here's what he said, and I don't know the details of it, but this is from Coach Randy Mazey. It's from his Twitter account. He says, thanks to the fans for showing up and welcoming home our regional champs. There he's showing a video of the kids getting off the bus from the airport back at campus. He said, we could only get a 30-seat charter back from AZ. So I don't know if they use a charter company and the size jet they would have needed wasn't available, but he says we could only get a 30-seat charter, so I put all the players on it, and staff and me and staff are flying commercial. Congrats on getting home early, guys. If you need me, I'm in the Atlanta airport, a 3-hour layover, and here he is taking down some chow mein.
That's awesome. Well, but again, here's the thing. So my understanding of it, because this is how it was for us when I played college football, was if you made the playoffs, the NCAA buys your charter flight, and they pay for it, and they pay to travel you. So the NCAA is the one who messed up because they paid for that travel flight, and they pay for it whether you win or you lose. They get you down there, and they get you back. So the NCAA went out and made a mistake and bought a charter flight that was not big enough to get them back across the country. Whoops.
So and that's interesting to me. So the NCAA is the one that has to make those arrangements, or the school makes those arrangements?
My understanding is it's the NCAA pays for it, which would then tell me that they make the arrangements.
Got it. Okay.
There's usually I would say there's like an office of this that handles everything for the NCAA, corresponding with like a travel office for each school, right? You have like secretaries that are handling some of these bookings themselves.
Depends on the university. A lot of times that's a different staff member.
Okay.
Like at Central, that was our tight end coaches. That was part of his salary. He was travel and food. Speaking of which,
got it.
Do you know how many times I had $15 and I was eating at the Clackamas Mall in the food court? That was my lunch on my trips down to Western Oregon or down to Humboldt, because that happened a lot. So, look, I'm sure that the D1 guys are eating a little bit better than we are, but it's not always as lavish for certain teams.
Well,
if
let's
you catch my drift.
let's go from Division 1 with the Mountaineers all the way down to Division 3. This is a story that's been kicked around a little bit over the last couple weeks, but were you familiar with the Birmingham Southern baseball program and what's going on with them?
That's right. R.I.P. to their school.
R.I.P. to their school. So this is the school that was shutting down because of financial failure, essentially, at the end of May, but their baseball team won their regional and their super regional and was moving on to the Division 3 World Series, which extended past the date that their school would even exist. So they make it to, I don't believe it's Omaha, their version of whatever that is at the Division 3 College World Series. And unfortunately, the Birmingham Southern Panthers got knocked out after 3 games, and in pretty brutal fashion. They blew a 10-5 lead and lost 11-10 on a walk-off in their final game.
I think their school did that too.
Yeah.
That's how they lost all their money.
Yeah. But basically, these guys, and this, like, it kind of warms my heart. You want to like pour one out for them. They were supposed to fly home after their tournament, and they wanted to take one last bus ride.
That's
so
awesome.
they took the bus together one last time.
That's
and
awesome.
went and rode 12 hours home instead of flying what would have just been a couple hours, because they knew it was the last time they were all going to be together. School's done, program's done. Try to basically milk it for everything that it's worth and just savor those last few conversations, those last few memories. And I'm sure something those dudes will remember for the rest of their life. It says in this article here that despite everything that went against them with the school closure, that the last couple of weeks has just been this thrill ride that's been full of smiles, and even the failures have been they've been so supported by people all around the country. It's kind of a cool thing, and they basically commemorated the end of their run with by foregoing their flight and taking one last bus ride.
Well, the parts that you remember from your playing days, it's whether you're middle school, high school, college, professional, you don't remember the games, really. You don't really remember the practices. The things that you look back fondly are the moments where you spent with your team, the bus rides. I can probably talk about bus rides down to the minute more than I can talk about gameplay down to the minute.
Those are the things that stick with you, right?
That's what you care about. That's an awesome story, man. You get to go and ride the bus with your buddies one last time. You know you're really letting it rip because the coaches aren't going to get you in trouble because the school's no more. So you don't have to worry about a coach getting mad at you. As a coach, you don't have to worry about getting on any of your players because at that point, who cares? They're not really yours anymore. So just go out and have one last hurrah. I love it. That's awesome. Good for them.
Yeah, it brought almost a tear to my eye. Like I was, giving me goosebumps. Like that is so cool. These memories are what you are going to savor when you're 50, 60 years old.
Well, and it's cool that these guys had the presence of mind in the moment to say, hey, you know what? If we did it this way, that'd be nice. And that it would be easy to get swept up and they're like, oh, we're just going to go through the same routine and go back the way we're supposed to. They're like, no, let's hold on and savor this. So good on those guys. Hell of a run that they put together, just coming up short. But the Birmingham Southern Panthers, we hardly knew ye. Now, R.I.P. Post dated back to May.
R.I.P.I.P. Rest in peace and peace again.
That's right. Coming up next is the club. A couple stories to share with you. One that Jordan shared with me. What happens when you find a bag of cash at your front door? Additionally, why we still need hot flight attendants. And this just coming across my desk. Real Housewives of New Jersey star convicted of hiring a mobster to assault her lover? Okay, let's get into that next on The Fan.
Need inspiration? Shop Fred Meyer for over
for the club, boy, do I have a smattering of stories for you today. There's so many places to potentially go here. Although I think that the place that I would like to start might be with the story that Jordan sent on to me. And the headline is, out of a mob movie, juror in COVID fraud case dismissed after getting bag of $120,000 cash.
So someone got paid off to side?
Or at least attempted to. Yeah. So as the story goes, there was a juror in the case was a $250 million charitable fraud case in Minnesota, and it was dismissed after someone went to a juror's home and left a bag with $120,000.
No, just the juror was dismissed.
Oh, the juror was dismissed.
This is a massive COVID fraud. That money that was given out during COVID, this company allegedly took millions and was supposed to be using it to, their nonprofit is called, I believe, like Feeding Our Future. They were supposed to use it to feed the nonprofits and hungry out there. Instead, they used a lot of it for luxury cars and trips and whatnot.
Got it. Okay, so that makes more sense that it would just be just the juror that's dismissed. It doesn't appear that, obviously there's jury tampering allegations that come with such a thing, but before we get to the fallout, what could have been behind it, what would you guys do?
If I were a juror?
Yeah. Any chance you're like, oh, look, I found $90,000 at my front door, and you just, peel off a little for yourself?
Look, it would be...
you're not sitting on the trial anyways, might as well keep it all.
Right, I would like to think that my moral high ground would come in, but $120K is a lot more money than I have ever seen, let alone make.
I'm not going to lie, I'd slip a little off the top and then turn it in. I'm being, guys, this is 120%. Here's Schultzy, as I am. I would try to be honest. I would really want to be. But we're talking, this is a dishonest bag of money in the first place.
Yeah.
So who's going to report you if you decided to keep $10K of it yourself off the top? I sound like a dirty police officer, and I am just terrible.
They gave me $100K.
Well, Suk has long said that, he just wants to be in a position to be able to be bribed. He's like, I would like a position of, law enforcement, politics, or authority where people want to bribe me, so at least I have the choice whether I want to accept those bribes or not.
Well, could you... obviously, if they found out that it was actually 120 and not 100, if that's what you tried to skim off the top... Would they really catch you? Do you think this lady out of the mob movie is going to be like, hey, I gave you 120, not 100?
That's what I'm wondering.
So obviously we know where this...
Wait a minute.
We know which side this money came from, because here's the fun detail of the story, or I say fun, potentially scary, but this is where it reads more like a movie than real life. It says the juror, who's 23 years old, was not home when the woman came by to drop off the cash. So it was a woman, not a man. Mm-hmm. And it says her father-in-law was home, and the woman told the juror's father-in-law, the money is for juror number 52, and tell her there will be another bag if she votes to acquit. So basically, you know exactly where this is coming from. Is that a little scary? You start feeling like you're looking over your shoulder walking around in the suburbs or whatnot?
Depends on what she looked like. If she looked like China from WWE, I might be a little more nervous. If it's like a smaller, like Livy Dunn walks up, I might not be as nervous.
So it says that the...
That's true.
I just assume that this woman delivering the cash is connected to some bad dudes, and that regardless of what she looks like, if I take the money and don't acquiesce, it's my kneecaps that are going to be on the line, and it might not be her who's swinging the bat.
She's obviously connected to the defense in this trial because they got her information. The fact that they know where a potential juror lives, the only people that have that info are people connected to the case. And it certainly wasn't the prosecutors that did that.
My favorite part in the article is that the attorneys say they are troubled by the allegations.
Mm-hmm. Sure they are.
They all got charged, actually. I don't know if you saw that.
I haven't. No, I did not.
So they added. So there's guys. This is like kind of it is a convoluted case. A total fraud of about $250 million being alleged by this company. 45 people are up being charged total in this. I think they've already had 18 plead guilty. 7 are in this trial right now that the juror was bribed on, and essentially they are connected to some big monies that essentially coming from these 7 people are trying to use to bribe their way out of trouble, and that ain't happening. Because of that, they got charged. All 7 people in this current situation were charged with, I'm assuming, tampering, witness tampering, and trying to bribe.
Well, now the juror's dismissed. Like, she can't even be a part of this, or they can't be a part of this case
And actually,
anymore.
a second juror was dismissed today in the same case.
Same thing? More cash?
They're not more cash, but they're saying that some questions were asked, because after this, guys, they had to sequester the jury.
I would bet, yeah.
Yeah. You don't want
because then you start to wonder, okay, they're trying to get somebody on the take. Have they already put somebody up there who's already on the take?
Exactly. And I think the questions, amongst others, basically forced another jury member out, is what I've read. And now they usually have 2 alternates on a jury, so I believe they're out of alternates. And hopefully no one else gets contacted while they're sequestered. This
what happens
is
if they run
mafia
out of
stuff.
What happens if they run out of alternates?
Think they go back to their pool? I don't even know.
Yeah, well, I think there have to be enough alternates that basically you're not going to cross that bridge. But then again, I guess if the juror pool is tainted enough, you would just have to go mistrial and start the whole darn thing over again, I guess.
Probably.
But man, that's this is the stuff where, like, I don't know. I feel like in general, like, I don't believe in. I know the mob is real. I know the mob and the mafia, like, are a real thing. But they're always this kind of nebulous. You never really see it. You only kind of hear about it being this force, or even just like, like corruption and like the Boeing trial of the whistleblower, like, being found dead. Like, clearly we live in a society where there are fixers and there are people who help ensure results of certain things where money is tied very high level. And I'm always fascinated at what the backroom dealings of all that actually looks like. Like, who on that defense team is putting the bug in somebody's ear? Hey, we need to go get this person. Here's how much we're going to pay them. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's how we're going to get their info. Like, this is a full-on scheme, and I need to know more.
I want to know if, like, now it's back to the drawing board. Like, oh no, we are now at 120K. Like, what do we do to fix this? How do we? I wonder if it was also like kind of how the old Sopranos shows were. Like, hey, you got to go see our friend about their new Greens initiative.
I wonder those things too. Like, how much is like wink, wink, nod, nod, like, you know what to do, and how much is explicit? Here's what I'm paying you. Here's what's going to happen. Like, let's just make sure we cover our tracks. Burner phones, clandestine in-person meetings, whatever. Like I really want to know, especially in the legal world where there's so much money to be gained or lost by the winning and losing sides. If you're talking about a $250 million figure here, paying one of these jurors $120,000 is a drop in the bucket. It's nothing to ensure your results.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always wondered too on those shows. Like, obviously they have to be vague because they want to be able to lie and be like, no, that's not what I was talking about. But how, like, do you have a code book? Do you have like a word system that you use? Do you infer? And then if you infer incorrectly, do you get mad at them for inferring incorrectly? Like, how do you figure it out?
How am I supposed to know that that's what you were talking about? Yeah, I mean, all of that stuff.
Is there a Portland Mafia?
Can I go hang out with the Portland Mafia?
There's probably not a mafia. I'm sure there's organized crime around here of different
Text
sects.
line, let us know.
I'm sure that there is.
Can Will hang out with the Portland Mafia? Where are you? Please show yourselves.
Just like, I just want to know, like, I just want to know your lingo. Maybe I don't want to know your lingo, actually. Now that I think about it, I'd like to not be involved in the Portland Mafia. I'd like to be far away.
Well, speaking of the Mafia, I do have one more Mafia-related story for you here. And I have read that the ex-husband of Real Housewives of New Jersey star Dina Manzo was convicted today of hiring a mobster to beat up his former, or excuse me, I want to make sure I get this right. Yeah, they're basically, it says that was convicted of hiring a former mobster to beat up his former beau's new lover. So basically, he's the ex. He's mad about his ex having a new person, and he hired a mobster to essentially rough this guy up and got caught for it. It says that Tommy Manzo, the prominent New Jersey restaurateur, he planned the attack on his ex-wife's now husband, but in return it said that he promised the guy who was doing the roughing up a free wedding at his catering hall. So he's like, hey, if you take care of my ex's new boyfriend, Make sure you and your wifey are set up real nice for your reception.
Oh my God! It's like a real crime family. The Lucchesi.
Oh yeah, the Lucchesi. I think it's pronounced Lucchesi. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Now I'm going through. Like they're
like a legit crime family in the tri-state area.
He went out and got one of the 5 families.
Yeah, that's
My
right.
God.
He went out and got a soldier in the a capo in one of the 5
Capo.
families to go and carry out this vicious assault.
Yeah.
Is it the capo or the capo, like the head of the family?
No, that's one of the generals.
Thank you.
So he
the
might
capos
not.
are generals.
He might not
or
have
a
got
captain
a capo
for short. Yeah.
Yeah, he might not have got a capo. That's just the one I remember. It's a soldier, Johnny Perna. Johnny P.
Hey.
And that's another one of those things. Like what? I don't give these people a lot of credit for looking too far into the future. But like, what do you think is going to happen? That you give this guy his free wedding, that he roughs up this guy that your ex is connected to, and like no one thinks you have anything to do with it. Come on.
This is nut. Like, if you go to the United States Attorney's Office, District of New Jersey, you get the full story. I'm reading it right now. He went out and just got like some dude who had his own crew that was a part of the Lucchesi crime family, one of the big 5. It was just like, you're gonna help me take this guy out.
Does it say what that kind of a task runs you? If you're like, hey, go rough this guy up. I mean, I know that it seems like they're exchanging goods and services here, because he's not necessarily, they don't reference money, they reference that he could use his place for the wedding, but like I don't know what the financial commitment on something like that
so he's
is.
a made man, so in exchange for committing the assault, it's a lavish wedding reception at the venue for free. So my brother's going through a wedding right now. I couldn't tell you exactly how much, but I know it's in the 20K-ish range. I got to assume that it's minimum double that. Minimum. To have this big Italian wedding with all of your family there, doing it completely for free. Then Manzo concealed, falsified documents. This is nuts. He's going to do 20 years.
By the way, the text line is in, and while they say they haven't heard much of the Portland Mafia, there are a few instances of the Russian Mafia in Portland.
I'm good. Good.
Which might be worse than the Italian Mafia.
Nope, good. I'm good.
Yeah, stay far, far away.
I'll keep my Mafia members on my TV screen.
Yeah, I would too. I always think it's something like The Sopranos. It's like, oh, you paid someone to go rough someone up, and then things went wrong, and they accidentally killed the guy.
Yeah,
like, yeesh.
I'm pretty sure I had a Russian mafia member in my house, like at one point when I was like 18 or 19.
What?
Yeah, we lived in Salem, where I'm
Igor?
from. With my mom had her house, a newer build in an older neighborhood, but a couple other newer houses that just had people moving in as well. This very nice Russian gentleman, but extremely volatile when he got drunk. Extremely. And he came over to our house for Christmas Eve because we were in the neighbors over one night. He would just not stop pushing vodka down. And like my mouth, like he's like, you're drinking. I'm like, no, I hate straight vodka. It's literally my least favorite alcohol ever.
Yeah, it's not a fun thing to take straight.
No, but his mannerisms, the way that he was talking, the way that he was acting, I will never forget it, and never since have I been around that type of person. And my mom found out later, like, yes, he has connections to the Russian mafia. Police came and took him too. So
creepy.
It was very weird.
All right, well, we do have a couple texts coming in, both on the organized crime stuff as well as a couple random questions that I will lob both of your way. And we also have to get to why we still need hot flight attendants, and then something I sent you guys both earlier that I failed to tease but I think might be worth getting into. What happens when Elon Musk introduces the internet to a tribe of the Amazon? We'll let you know. That's coming up on the club, or in the club on the Fan.
It's the Fan on Demand.
They're kind of fun to play with, aren't they?
Now, fan podcasts are better than ever with whole show podcasts.
I appreciate you, because we needed a hamster to pedal this wheel around.
And you can still get newsmaker interviews in any hour from your favorite fan shows.
Yes, all right.
Yeah. Listen to the Fan on Demand on your phone, smart speaker, or 1080thefan.com.
How long do you leave it up there?
Will Ortner and I are going down very different crime rabbit holes. Will, what have you found in your research during the break?
Well, apparently the Lucchesi, they were the most...
Lucchesi.
I think it's Lucchesi? Yeah.
Well, I apologize to the
It's
You
okay.
don't wanna
I,
get
I
whacked.
said
That's
capital
right.
wrong, so it's all good.
I don't want to be offensive to them. They were one of the more peaceful crime families in the nation until like 86 when
That's
they
an
got
oxymoron,
this
isn't
guy.
it?
Yeah.
Right. They got this guy Victor Amuso or Anthony Casey, and he's the underboss. Queso murdered 30 to 40 people allegedly himself, and then ordered over 100 murders. He was sentenced to 455 years in prison. They had authority over the detectives. The guy who found the Lucchesi family, Tommy, he had like 1,000 people at his funeral when he died of a brain tumor. Dude never went to prison. And politicians, along with like pimps and drug dealers, were all at the same place.
Sounds about
This is
right for
insane.
organized crime. Yeah.
Yep.
This is crazy. I'm
Well-
so interested.
Somebody also on the text line brought up or asked about the Unthanked Park Hustlers, and I didn't know what this was, but they asked if it was still a thing, and they read something about them in Willamette Week years ago. Yeah, I guess that this was a regional sect of like the Bloods gang, and yeah, it was very much alive and well, at least in Northeast Portland. I'm reading a story here about how one of those members of the what they call the Unthanked Park Hustlers was sentenced to prison after they caught him purchasing and trafficking 64 different firearms that were involved in 17 shootings and 2 homicides. So, yeah, that's a thing that's going on in our area as well.
Wow.
Now, there are some lighter texts coming in, including this one, which I will send to both of you fellas. If you had to wear just one for the next month, would you rather wear a ZZ Top beard, assuming that you're growing it yourself, a Raleigh Fingers mustache? If you don't know, that's like a
the big
waxy
twist.
handlebar, yep,
Mm-hmm.
and or a Brian Bosworth mullet.
Oh, the Boz mullet. One, because I'd have hair again, but the Boz's mullet
I figured that would be a no-brainer for you.
doesn't get better than that.
That's a good look. I'd be interested to wear the Raleigh finger stash for a month because I want to see how people look at me.
Yeah.
I've always wondered why the hell dudes want to go with that after the year 1848. It's like, dude, we've changed styles since then. But if you're Raleigh fingers, I guess you're a millionaire rich dude that's, in a baseball uniform looking sexy to the ladies out there. Yeah, you can pull it off. But like I always think of Ron Goldman. His like the is it Ron? Is it that the dad's name of? No, I believe Ron Goldman was the one that died at the hands of O.J. Simpson,
Right.
Allegedly, but not
Yes,
really.
yes.
His dad has that curly mustache.
Yes, he does.
And I've always just been like, that is the ugliest damn thing I've ever seen. You make it look even worse. Shave that ass. So I would have to go with the curly stash.
Sorry, guys, there was a capo in the Lucchesi family named Peter Fat Pete Cheeto.
What?
Fat Pete
Fat
Cheeto?
Pete Cheeto? That's great.
That's how I'm pronouncing it. It's Chiodo. Chiodo?
Or Kyoto, maybe?
Kyoto.
Or Chiotto?
Fat Pete is a hilarious nickname.
In general, I think that like mob nicknames tend to be kind of like playground nicknames by like the meathead kids. Like that's what it ends up being like, and it's hilarious because it's always like Johnny Two Times and Lucky Big Man and stuff like that.
Lucky.
And-
Alfonsi Little Al Diarco.
Yeah, like
see
Little
Little,
Al.
too.
I mean, yeah, they just throw in littles and bigs all over the place because it's often unoriginal. But what was it? Fat Pete, Little Pete, what was
Fat
it?
Pete.
Fat Pete.
Fat Pete and Little Al, and then you've got John Jr. Gotti.
Well, what was the joke in Goodfellas that the wife, as she was being introduced to everybody at the wedding to Ray Liotta's character, every man was named Peter or Paulie?
Yeah,
It's like, oh
yeah, this
my
is
God.
Petey, this is Paulie, this is
Sammy.
Little Paulie, this is Big Petey. Yeah.
And they're all
Sammy the Bowl.
married to women named Marie. It's like no,
Yeah. Yep.
No individualism in that culture, at least according to Goodfellas.
Another club question from the fan Vancouver Ford text line, 503-8646 fan. You can only get one for the rest of your life. Will you take ice cream, donuts, candy bars, cake, pie, or coffee? What's your choice?
Decisions.
Ice
know.
cream. Super easy. Ice cream. Give me cookie dough ice cream. Give me Rocky Road ice cream. Give me Moose Track. Like whatever ice cream you can give me ice cream. It's just that one doesn't take any time.
Coffee. I love caffeine way too much.
See, but you can get caffeine other ways.
See, and that's exactly what I was thinking. Initially, I thought I would go coffee, but I have come off of drinking black coffee daily or to start the morning like I used to, and sometimes I get my caffeine later in the day through other modes like either Red Bull or Diet Coke or something like that. And so of all those other treats, I don't feel like I would be as married to donuts or candy bars, cake or pie. So yeah, I'm taking ice cream. There's just too many good choices there.
Yeah, I got distracted because I found my new favorite nickname, Lou Bagels.
Lou
Dadoni.
Lou Bagels.
Lou Bagels.
Text here telling us that organized crime used to be pretty big in Portland. Portland city officials had to go before Congress in the 1940s because of the corruption. Bugsy Siegel nearly built a casino on Sauvie Island.
Who's Bugsy Siegel? No,
Bugsy Siegel's a very famous longtime mobster, but wow, now that makes me want to do a little bit of Portland
Bugsy Siegel
mob digging because
he's a Vegas guy.
Can you imagine a casino on Sauvie Island? That would be awesome.
That would be so cool.
They'd hate it, but it would be amazing.
So
yeah,
he's in all kinds of mob
he's a Bugsy Siegel is a very big deal.
So he's like the whole reason that there's Las Vegas, but then he was also influential in the Jewish mob and the Italian American mafia.
There you go.
Wow. Now I'm gonna be reading about this. He was a bootlegger. This guy's
Bugsy Siegel was something of a mob legend.
He helped develop the Flamingo Hotel
and the Flabongo. No, that's not true.
No, I was like, oh. And then he died in Beverly Hills. This, spoiler alert, dead. I'm going to have to do some more research on this. Has just become the rest of the club for me. I'm just finding mafia crime.
While you continue to educate yourself with organized crime in America, I will get ready to tell you about the Amazon tribe that just got the internet courtesy of Elon Musk, and some people are not very happy down in South America. We'll get to that next, but first, Schulte has the SportsCenter update.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a SportsCenter update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, just 2 days until the start of the NBA Finals between the Mavericks and Celtics in Boston. Today, the Athletics' Shams Charania reporting that Kristaps Porzingis will be available despite dealing with a strained calf throughout the playoffs. The Celtics a 6.5-point favorite right now for Game 1 at home. Major League Baseball has banned Padres shortstop Tucupita Marcano for life after he bet on hundreds of baseball games last season when he was a player for the Pittsburgh Pirates. He did bet on the Pirates but did not play in any of those games since he was on the injured list. The league also suspended Oakland Athletics pitcher Michael Kelly for one season. He bet on baseball while he was a member of the Astros minor league system back in 2021. Speaking of the A's, they are hosting the Seattle Mariners actually in just a few minutes. Mitch Spence and George Kirby on the bump. First pitch is at 6:40 on Root Sports if you want to watch. The Mariners also signing outfielder Victor Robles officially today. They outrighted Luis Urias to AAA to make room on their 40-man roster. Also, the San Francisco 49ers signing running back Christian McCaffrey to a 2-year, $19 million extension. That guarantees him $24 million overall when you add his current deal in. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schulte at the 1080 The Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
The Fan is live on YouTube and Twitch, and now
All right, we're back in the club hour, or the mob hour, as it has turned into. We are getting lots of information. Will's education into the mob history in the United States is going crazy right now. What else have we learned, Will?
Well, I learned about Vancouver Ford text line. They said look up Meyer Lansky. So I learned about the dude who basically, he's like the mob's accountant. He basically introduced money laundering to the mafia and offshore banking.
Hell yeah.
Had no idea about that. Somehow they're all friends from childhood. So his best friend was Charles Lucky Luciano, who I'd need to do more research on him, but even I've heard of that guy. He was friends and grew up with Bugsy Siegel, so that's how Bugsy kind of grew. They had their band or their mob that they ran together. Then all of a sudden he knew this Arnold Rothstein character who all kinds of stuff.
Arnold Rothstein, also known as Ace Rothstein, was at the heart of the Black Sox scandal that Schultze referenced earlier. That was when the White Sox then became known as the Black Sox intentionally threw the World Series, and the mob was behind it. Arnold Rothstein was at the heart of that.
Tight friends with Frank Costello. They're all together. They're all friends. They all grew up together. Like they were all in homeroom together at the local high school.
Shocking, by the way, that the mob in the whole Black Sox situation did not actually follow through on their payments that they promised to the players. Ended up threatening them with their lives and the lives of their families. So yeah, great.
Nice bunch of fellas if you can get on their good side. A text from the Vancouver Ford text line says, I moved to New Jersey, where my wife is from, to get married. My first Christmas there, she took me down the street to a local Christmas tree lot. The most idyllic setting, snowing, lots of trees, kids playing, really nice people. They served hot chocolate. I remember this fairly big guy who had a really thick East Coast accent was really nice to me. Slapped me on the back, said Merry Christmas. On the drive home, I commented to my wife how nice that family was that we ran into at the tree lot. My wife responded in a very low-key way. Oh yeah, forgot to tell you that they're all into organized crime. The whole family, for generations. Great, I just made friends with a mob boss.
Oh my God. How crazy would that be if you didn't know and then you found out yeah, I'm just friends with Tony Soprano. Had no idea what was going on.
Well, and if you've seen The Sopranos, there's a pretty funny story arc where his neighbor, Cusimano, finds out that he is in the mob and, doesn't know what to do about it and kind of wants to, approach him on it. And Tony's like, here, why don't you hold this box for me for a while? And, makes him, and it's like a box of sand.
Yeah.
But he makes him think it's, some really, important blackmail type stuff. And then, his life could be at risk if he tells anybody. And Tony takes him for a pretty good ride on that. But it would be very odd to, know that a mobster lived next door.
Right. He always messes with Cusimano. Well, and then Meadow the whole time is I know that you're a mob. Because what is it, second episode or third episode? They go on the
college
trip and he finds an old
acquaintance.
Yeah, a snitch. I was looking for the right word.
Yeah.
He found a government witness.
Used to be one of ours.
Yeah. Joe Bananas. Sorry. This is going to be a rabbit hole that I go down the rest of the night. There's a guy named Trigger Happy Charlie.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite so far.
They're friends with Frank Sinatra and they're hanging out in Cuba with him?
Oh, yeah. The Rat Pack had big time mob ties. Yeah.
Frank, that was actually one reason that he was separated from his relationship with JFK, because the government did not want the mob getting that close to the president.
Right, because isn't that the whole thing with the Martin Scorsese movie where he's got De Niro? It's where they're all old, but it's De Niro, it's Pesci.
The Netflix, the 3-hour, The Irishman?
Yeah. Isn't that the whole thing? They have to be smart about how JFK handles his mob ties, because everyone knows he has mob ties, but you can't really come out and say
too obvious,
mob
but
ties. He's getting blackmailed by J. Edgar Hoover. What's going on here?
Well, you mentioned some of the guys involved in the Black Sox scandal. The text line pointing out to us that Shoeless Joe Jackson was banned from baseball for being part of that scandal, but that he might not have actually been part of it. Now, I've watched that movie, which is fantastic. I think it's one of the best baseball movies out there. But basically, Shoeless Joe Jackson was notoriously not very intelligent, not very well educated, and he basically agreed to this mob scheme, not realizing what he was agreeing to. And then once some of his teammates told him, yeah, Joe, you're going to go out there and play bad on purpose. He's like, no, I'm not doing it. And he put up the best stats of his career in that series, and they still kicked him out of baseball because they're like, no, we have you connected these guys. And he's like, but I didn't but I didn't do it.
Well, and the whole thing was able to be set up that way because the owner was notoriously cheap. He'd find a way to bench guys so that they couldn't hit their numbers. The real bummer, sorry, I keep coming back to this this Myers guy, Meyer Lansky. The worst thing that could have happened for him was the Cuban Revolution. He was hanging out in Cuba, and then Fidel Castro and Che Guevara, they come in, and now the mafia can't hang out in Cuba anymore, which I spent my Friday reading up on Che Guevara because I was teaching a history class.
There you go. Look at you.
This is what I do. Welcome to what I do when I teach.
You just learn hop on the internet so that you can relay the information to the children?
Well, I don't want to, like, if I'm teaching...
Yeah, you want to have some context
I
what you're
want to
talking
have
about.
some sort of context to help you out. So if I'm teaching like American history, I figure out, okay, what are we doing about this? And then I'm like, I'm not obviously not going to be as well read as the actual teacher, but I'd like to at least be able to help in some way. And somehow we were watching a video and it mentioned Che Guevara, and so then the kids were asking about Che Guevara because everyone's seen that photo of Che Guevara that's like famous now because of Rage Against the Machine. So then that went down a whole thing. So then I spent most of my Friday teaching and reading about Che Guevara.
Well, I do want to switch gears because I've teased it a couple times now, but what do you think happens when 2,000 tribe members in the Amazon get internet for the first time? Do you think that is a net positive, a net negative, or somewhere in the middle? What would be your guess?
Thunderdome.
Can I add before you get into this? This almost started a fight between my wife and I. Like, not really, but we got pretty heated on our sides of this. This is a very interesting story, Buck.
I think it's interesting because it kind of gives us like a microcosm of what could be happening at our society at a much slower pace, but you just watch it happen almost literally overnight. So what happened is Elon Musk's company Starlink that does the internet, they made their internet available to this 2,000 member Marubo tribe in the Amazon in Brazil. And they hadn't had internet or really access to the outside world like that ever before this. And so in a lot of ways, it's very helpful. It helps people. I mean, it helps them in ways of life. It helps them find, medical answers to things. It also changes their scope of what the world is outside of them. But at the same time, it's already very quickly changed a lot of their ways. And so, as it says here, one of the tribe members says when it arrived, everyone was very happy, but now things have gotten worse. People have gotten lazy because of the internet, and they're learning the ways of the white people.
I just love how they're like, hey, we're going to drop, social media and internet into this tribe, and instantly they become the exact same things and have the exact same issues that we have here
and so
in America.
To point out some of those very specific internet addiction issues that we have, the Marubo tribe, which is typically a chaste tribe who often even frown on kissing in public, have discovered fast access porno. And basically all the men are forwarding videos around to each other on their phones and changing the standards of decorum within the tribe, where all this stuff used to kind of be very taboo. It's now suddenly available to all of them at any time, and it's starting to it's making its way into group chats and has led to more aggressive sexual behavior from males in the tribe. So there's that.
Do you think they know about Oilers girl? Oilers lady?
Oh, I wonder if they know about Oilers lady.
They're like, we need to get to a hockey game ASAP.
I don't think they care. They see what she's offering, and then they'll go find more of it. That it's like almost like a drug for somebody that's like never had it before, and you just give them an unlimited amount.
Yeah, a little bit. It says another one of the elders said we're worried that young people are going to want to try everything that they see. Everyone's and it says that everyone is so connected digitally now that sometimes they don't even talk to their own families anymore. Boy, where have we heard that before? Like every kid with a smartphone, it's like we think that the families or the kind of the core family in the U.S. is less connected than ever because everyone's on their devices. This tribe is finding it out almost immediately that it's that way.
It's so fast. I love how we think that the world, not necessarily like the world will be like a better place, but hey, you'll be more now because you can text or you can call or FaceTime or you can do all these different things. We'll now be more sociable. We won't have these issues where your friend moves away for a job and then you don't become friends with them and you don't talk with them and then you never know what ends up happening to them. And reality is just like, where is the quickest way for us to get into debauchery and make everything easy access? and the tribe does the same thing.
Well, and now on the flip side of it, there's one of the people in the tribe said that this has already saved lives, just having access to the internet.
Just the emergency contact.
I absolutely believe that, and that members of the tribes are also able to share educational resources with family and friends that live elsewhere, and that it's opened their eyes, especially some of the youth, to the world of possibilities outside their own immediate surroundings, which they've never really been aware of. There are kids now with aspirations of having jobs outside the tribe, like dentist or doctor or things like that, which I think is really great. But then again, you go right back to the other side, where one of the elders is saying it's changed our routine so much as a society. It used to be in the village, if you don't hunt, fish, or plant, that you don't eat. And now some young kids just want to spend their whole day on their phones. Boy, if that doesn't sound like our society. It's all just happening at a way quicker rate but they're learning this is what happens when you get to drink the internet right out of the fire hose.
I mean, but the internet isn't good for society at all. It's
Right.
kind of what it's sounding like. Like, we are actually worse off now than we were before this, even with the exchange of information as quick as it is.
Well, there are clear, undeniable benefits, but everything else that comes along with it is it a net positive. It's seeming, at least for this tribe, that, well, it's hard to it's hard to debate, or it's hard to decide, because, like they said, in some cases it absolutely is better for them, but it's made them lose their way very quickly in some ways, and it's reshaping how their youth think almost immediately.
They're literally getting so lazy that they're stopping hunting trips. Like, it's something that I read in this article. I mean, we're talking about a 2,000 person tribe that still has to go out and maintain its life, which is going out, grabbing food, washing things by hand. This is very primitive stuff. If you don't do that, it's kind of like somebody sitting here just deciding out of high school, oh, I don't want to go to work. I'm just going to sit on Facebook all day. And you know what? It's not a good practice. This is not good. And I think Brazilian officials are scared that this is going to get rid of the cultures and the long-standing traditions with some of these tribes if this happens more and more.
I'm reading that they've also already had tribes people come in and make rules that the leaders of the tribe have to have their internet restricted so that they can't just spend all day on it. They want to make sure that the people running the show there aren't just getting sucked down the rabbit hole. So it says that they're allowed 2 hours on the internet in the morning and 5 hours in the evening all day Sunday. But basically they can't let it chew up your whole day anymore. You can still do 7 hours in morning and night, but not the middle of the day anymore, people.
Wow. It does make me feel a little bit better now, because everyone has that day where it's just like, I'm on social media way too much. At least it happens to the tribes people as well. Like this, it's very clear. I mean, if you haven't seen, what is it, The Social Network? Is that the documentary on Netflix?
Oh,
I believe it's The Social Network, or
well, The Social Network was the movie with
oh, you're right. That's
Justin Timberlake.
Yeah, no, there's a documentary about it, but basically it goes into detail about how all of these sites are designed to keep our attention, and it makes
to keep
me
us coming back.
And it makes me feel better as a person that not only am I susceptible to this, people that have nothing to do with social media and they really have no reason why they should want to be on Twitter or want to be on Instagram or want to be on any of these social sites other than, the nefarious ones is the words I'm going to use for that. They really have no reason to be on these sites, yet they're hooked on it as well. So it does make me feel a little bit better inside that it's more of a universal human thing that happens.
Some of your thoughts coming in on the Vancouver Ford text line. We will get to some of those on the other side of the break as we get ready for the Hot Corner coming up at the top of the hour. That's coming up next as we wrap up the club here on The Fan.
It's back, and it's sure to sell out fast. The afternoon round of the 10th Annual Fan Golf Classic at Langdon Farms on Thursday.
Portner, as an educator, has just had a whole world of education opened up in front of him tonight. He is deep down the mob rabbit hole, and he's getting plenty of assists from the Vancouver Ford text line of other stories and pieces of history to go explore tonight. It feels like you got some homework tonight.
It's going to be a thing. I am going to go to sleep watching mob stories and mob movies. I'd heard some of the names. I don't think that I realized that they were all in conjunction. And what I really didn't realize is that they all, at least the old school ones, all kind of like grew up together. Like, I don't think that.
Yeah,
I
there's
totally
kind of a neighborhood boy connectedness thing going on.
Yeah.
There.
Well, and like I knew the JFK stuff. Like I knew the Kennedys. Like there were rumors or links of them with the mafia, but I didn't understand like how deep it really went and some of the conspiracy theories around that and his assassination. I'm enthralled. This is what I'm going to be doing probably all week.
I love it. Welcome to the wonderful world of late night true crime. It really does. I don't know why, but it helps me fall asleep. I'm sure it'll help you do the same.
A couple pieces of education being imparted on us on the text line. One says the mob controlled 2 huge casinos in Havana with plans to build more when the revolution went down. And then additionally, they're adding here that the mob wanted to reestablish their casinos in Cuba and had a relationship with the Kennedys' father. So the mob helped him stuff the ballot boxes in Illinois to help JFK win the presidential election. Kennedy, however, did not help them when he became president. And the mob then helped, along with others, to assassinate him. So at least that's a theory that him not being willing to play ball on the casino thing could have ultimately come back around to have gotten him. Obviously, there are about 1,000,001 different theories on how, who, and why JFK was taken out, but that is one of them.
Well, and there's some crazy things, too, when it comes to, like, the Cuban Revolution and, like, how integral of a piece that Che Guevara was. Like, I didn't realize, like, I knew he was the picture, but I didn't realize that he was really Castro's secondhand man, and he was the secondhand man pretty much all the way through, and he was the true, like, I don't like that there are poor people in this world. And so I always thought of him more as like, I assumed he was more of a philosopher because I'd heard of the philosophy. That dude was as brutal as they come. He did a lot of, I'm going to call it purging. When it came to the people who were in charge of Cuba before him and Castro took over, he was in charge of
basically just taking people out.
Their free and fair and balanced trials. There are lots of air quotes going on right now, and so that was a whole thing as well. So history is just fun, man. We started this show with history about the booming of the Midwest cities and when it was the prime of the Midwest. And I'm just glad that we've circled all the way back around to now the prime of the mafia and Che Guevara, maybe?
Well, and now new history being written deep in the Amazon in Brazil, as one of the texters telling us that in addition to some of the social media and porn addiction that we've seen from the tribe down there, they're also on Tinder now, and apparently creating big-time tribal beef, amongst their people because they're on the swipe right, swipe left game going on. It sounds like a nightmare.
Do you think they're catfishing each other?
Ooh.
Like, I would love for nothing more than, like, one of the tribe's people to see, like, someone down the road be like,
well,
that's a 2-year-old photo.
It makes you wonder, like, how long does it take to get up to speed with all the nefarious natures of the internet? Like, do you get something like catfishing right away, or is that something that you have to kind of, like, be educated on the internet for a period of time to finally understand?
You think they're learning about angles? Like, if I take this picture above my face, it will look like my face is skinnier than it really is. If I go do a couple push-ups and then I take the picture, it might look like my chest is bigger and fuller than it really is.
It's just crazy to think that a society who's not only never kind of even dabbled in this, never even had access in any part of this digital world, is like completely flipped on its head because of it. Like
they're just like us.
I can't imagine one day all of a sudden, like, can you imagine the reverse of that? That's all just taken away instantly. Like, and it's like, nope, everything you have is just right around you, and that's that.
I would eat some poison berry and die immediately. I would not last. I would be so dead so fast.
I'd try. It just wouldn't work. I'd be forcefully trying to make it work, and
I'd try. It just wouldn't work.
I would be dead so fast. Like, I would have to hope that a smaller but more like knowledgeable outdoorsman like took me in and was like, "You will be my bodyguard because I cannot fight against others."
It's like, hey, I can announce the dinner. Those are the skills that I've got.
There you go. Well,
for security.
I think that might be all the education that we can impart on our audience for at least one day. I do know that this crew, the SOB edition of Primetime, going to be right back at it tomorrow. Going to switch things up. Schultze's going to hop behind this chair, and we are going to keep the conversation going. Still, a couple club stories for us to get to and a whole world of sports for us to discuss. That'll happen tomorrow, once again, 3 to 7, right here on 1080 The Fan. But coming up next, you've got the hot corner. Schultze's sticking around. Joe Fish and Patrick Harris waiting in the wings. You can see them right out there. I'm sure they'll have plenty to talk about. The Mariners still in first place, still keep on trucking. They fired an offensive coordinator in the last week because that's a thing. We'll see if they discuss that, and well, I know they'll discuss plenty more coming up on the hot corner. Thank you for joining us today, for following us on Twitter, on YouTube, and reaching us on all of the socials at 1080 The Fan. For Will Ortner, for Jordan Schultz, I'm Ryan Buckley. We'll see you tomorrow. Good night.